Happy Saturday, everybody. Yeah, look who's back again. So, yeah, today I've got a very special guest. Been here a couple of times on the bar. You know her, you love her. Her name is V. And tell everybody a little bit about yourself, V. Pretend like this is the first time.
Well, hi everybody. As Zoo said, my name is V. I like to think of myself as a video gamer, a person who plays video games. Um, so I'm kind of here to discuss video games and the playing of them for the most part. Um, and I kind of would like to draw some distinctions, between people who play games and people who discuss them. I am here to discuss them, so you could, I guess, call me a hypocrite. But
I was gonna say people do that. People actually play the video games. I mean, we don't just talk
it is
endlessly about
mostly
video games.
it is mostly what I do with regard to games.
Now, I can confirm this, by the way, guys. There are people that talk about video games, and there are people that play video games. And I will tell you, even though I play video games, if I would just shut the fuck up and play games as much as I talk about video games, I might actually have a dent in my backlog by now. So that ain't no shit. So yeah, and I'm Zoo, and right now I'm kind of pissed off because actually right before this thing hit, I was just telling you about that. I got my first copyright strike. So pulling this up, my copyright strike. Let me give you some of the songs that are on this fucking copyright strike, so we can laugh together at YouTube.
Yeah, yeah. Give me some context here.
Wonderful Land, The Shadows, 1946. The Master's Call, Marty Robbins, 1965. Five Brothers, Marty Robbins, 1960. Like Saber Dance, The Jokers. Are you fucking with me?
I can kind of see Marty Robbins, just because,
Big deal. Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, is there really a whole ton of people that are busting down the door to listen to fucking Marty Robbins? I guess that would be my question. I guess if we weren't, if Marty Robbins wasn't on a Fallout modded radio station, would anybody hear Marty Robbins at this point?
I mean, I think you kind of put your finger on it. I think Fallout might have something to do with them having like a renewed interest in this sort of licenses.
Yeah, yeah. Fallout was a big deal. All of a sudden, hasn't it been?
Absolutely.
Now, you and I watched the show together. I guess that'd be kind of a good place to start. Just finished it. No spoilers for the people in the chat, but what did we think of that? It was pretty damn good, wasn't it?
Oh, I thought it was excellent. A lot better than like a lot of television shows in the past. I didn't watch a lot of Amazon's new original stuff just because I didn't think it would be particularly good.
It's
I
not.
think the last thing I watched by them that was original that I did like was The Night Manager. And that is excellent. I would recommend that to anyone who wanted to watch something with
Night Manager is
like
good. If you like
yeah, yeah,
suspense
it's
and if you like espionage type stuff, Night Manager is
yeah, yeah.
about as good as it gets.
Yeah, it's got Hugh Laurie, it's got Elizabeth Debicki, and oh gosh, everyone's gonna cancel me, but I forget the name of the guy who plays Loki all the time.
Is it? See, I back when I actually gave a fuck about Marvel.
Tom Hiddleston. Tom
Yeah, Tom
Hiddleston.
Hiddleston. That's it. Yeah, he was Loki, and then he was in a show that nobody watched,
hmm
like because
It's also
nobody
got
has.
Olivia Colman in it as well, and she's really great actually. So it's a lot of really great actors. It's a lot of really I think like surprisingly modern and relevant sort of commentary,
Well, because
particularly in our political in our
oh yeah,
political geopolitical environment.
yeah, that just keeps getting fucking worse, doesn't it? Like it just keeps
Right.
the macroeconomics and the geopolitical thing just. That's what it's kind of what I warn gamers. It's like there's a lot of these things, and actually, I was having this discussion with Brandon just last night or 2 nights ago, losing fucking track. But essentially, that explains a lot of what's going on. Like I was telling Brandon, nobody has any fucking money anymore, so they're targeting the people with the money at this point.
That's right.
Like for real. And yeah, so I enjoy what you got. I don't think it's going to get much better, guys. At least not in the short term. I think we're kind of locked into some rough times, some rough goings. in terms of
Well,
entertainment. But I tell you, I'm pretty. This year has been a little bit of a diamond in the rough. I'll tell you.
Also, you're the backlog. Like, when we do have these sort of dry spells from producers, and by the way, I don't think that's true. I think the indie scene is bursting at the seams still with incredible fucking titles. But, um, when I guess you look at like more mainstream titles, a lot of them
Triple
have
A
been
is done.
disappointing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but when you have this sort of dearth, you can either turn to the indies if you like, or alternatively, I know you guys complain about your backlogs all the time, and there's a lot of games worth playing. I picked up playing, this is going to be controversial, but I'd never really played a whole lot of Fallout New Vegas before because of
Oh, that's
its
so good.
technical issues. But I've been dumping hours into it. It is spectacular. And as you said, in the aftermath of watching the Fallout show, I just really had that itch. So I went
Same here.
diving in.
This is kind of this show is a little bit going to be a tale of two Fallout's. We kind of swap Fallout games, favorite Fallout games. Because I'm playing four, which you had been singing the praises of, and I know some folks, Jay and others, had also sang the praises of. So I'm playing four right now. Although this
Mm.
today I've been playing New Vegas because, and God, it's surprising how far and how fast you can get into that game. And you've been playing New Vegas for really what is, you've dipped your toes in, but this is the first like we're gonna take this all the way playthrough.
Right, yeah. I mean, I think I've got something like 55 hours in the game. I do
Right.
think that like it's not exactly accurate, those Steam numbers that are on your account showing how many hours you've put into a game, because like you might leave the game on when you walk away from it, or leave it on overnight, or
Hmm.
when you go to work or something like that. But they are like a rough estimate, and I do think I probably spent roughly 50 hours in that game already. And yeah, I just like I feel like within the last like 10 hours or so, I like re-roll the character, and I really feel like with like I have a new lease on the game. Just I let go of wanting it to be Fallout 4, and I let it be New Vegas, and it's really great.
Yeah. And that's what I would say about Fallout 4. Like they're very different games. But at the same time, they're both. I would say they're both really good games. The community, the settlement building, and the gunplay in Fallout 4, and then the just sheer volume of there is like 100 fucking ways to do everything in Fallout New Vegas. I feel like just a crazy amount of ways to do things.
Yeah, I've just been kind of I at this point I have like I almost enjoy having multiple concurrent player characters, but like kind of takes different routes in the game and make different decisions. Kind of it makes me feel like I experience more of games like these, which would explain why I dump a lot of hours into games like these. It's a lot of time. A lot of people would say 50 hours would be enough to maybe finish the game, but I'm not. I'm just getting started, and that's because I play video games.
Right. Exactly. It's I gotta tell you, like, and that's one of the things. Like, you talk about a game that has skill checks on your skill checks, which is really funny. Has like perception checks, skill checks. It's got all that shit. And I can't
Hmm.
think of another game like literally this is Fallout New Vegas is a game where if your character is dumb, you will get like the grug options. Like you can like basically be like
Right.
a caveman. And like
So Baldur's Gate 3 does that too, actually. Baldur's Gate 3
that's
also has like
awesome. Your
yeah. Hmm.
dialogue is
Hmm.
impacted by your dumbness.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, that's right.
Like so you can actually like threaten to hit people with big rock and shit. Like it's
You
it's
can be
great.
very dumb indeed.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Literally, you can role play as Grug, and that is always fun. The only other game I can think of that is like it is Disco Elysium, which is another one I keep singing your praises at. Keep throwing that
I
at you.
know I have to play it, but I have a bias that prevents me. So
It's so good. It's and remember, friend, it's a deconstruction. You got to remember
I know. I just
that.
there's a time and a place and a type of person, at certain times who's ready to be open to hear those sorts of stories. And
Right.
it's just not me at this very moment.
Yeah, I know. Because again, you do play as that. You do play as that cop who wakes up after a fucking night of binge drinking. Like, and it's like, oh shit. It's like, what kind of fucking disaster do you want to be? And that's actually the question the game asks you. What kind of disaster would you like to
I mean, relatable.
be? Yeah, it is. Like, for sure. Because honestly, like, we can make our jokes, but that's kind of true of everyone. Like we're all just kind of stumbling through this thing, one gradually, one thing at a time. So
Hmm.
Brooke is in the chat. Brooke says hi. She says, "Sorry, I missed your Fallout stream yesterday or other day. Didn't know you were streaming it." Well, nobody knew, they blocked it, Brooke. Um, they fucking blocked it. Because I had songs from I had 60-year-old songs on the OST, so they actually blocked that one. So I don't know if they would. I don't know how that works on YouTube. I'm not sure if they show it to you or not when that happens. But yeah, YouTube's got to figure their fucking copyright shit out. First and foremost, I don't monetize, so I don't know what the fuck effect a block would even have. So you know what? In the interest of this, what I'm going to do at the end of this stream is we're gonna end this stream on Marty Robbins' five brothers. They can suck my dick. I don't give a shit. Like I'm going to play Marty Robbins' Five Brothers every fucking day. Every time I go live, I'm going to play Marty Robbins' Five Brothers because I don't monetize, idiots. So as long as it's not like, now that's the thing I got to find out. Like, does it impact ability? Like, does it not broadcast it if I'm copywriting? If I'm breaking the law, like if I'm breaking the copyright law, does it then say that like my followers can't see it and shit? Because that might have to tiptoe then. But why the fuck would you even bother to do that? I don't monetize. Isn't the whole point of a copyright strike to stop someone from making money off your money? There's no money being made.
I mean, they don't want to be associated with that either. You know what I mean? Like
They
they
don't
want to
want free
control.
advertisement.
It's they don't necessarily see it that way.
Okay.
What they want is control over their intellectual property. Absolute and
Ah,
ironclad
and
control.
so now we get to kind of the heart of a little bit of what we're going to be talking about here. And I'm
Uh-huh.
glad you're able to. I'm glad you're able to look at it from that perspective because, again, I was kind of telling Brandon this a little bit in our last discussion. It's not always about money, is it? Not with these people.
Oh
Heck,
no, money is. I mean, people need to realize that money is a means to an end. You can have all the money you like, but you know that won't. If you unless you use it to buy food, you'll starve to death. And I know that seems like a elementary point, but I think a great deal of people don't fully grasp what it is that people with large amounts of money are actually buying with that money. And they're not necessarily spending it to buy it, if that makes sense.
that's true because I mean, what? And again, this is the question. It's a very elementary question. It's pretty 101 if you ask me. But if you're not buying, shit, like you and I, we get our checks and we buy shit, right? But if you
Of
already
course,
have all the shit, what do you do? What are you spending your money on? And
even
I
more,
have a guess.
what happens when you have such an enormous amount of money that people begin to give you everything for free?
Yeah, that too.
How much money do you make in that way? So when you have an enormous amount of money, you effectively buy yourself privilege. That's worth more than money for sure, but only with money can it come.
So
You're
yeah,
not
I
spending the
remember.
money to get it. You're actually accumulating it to get it.
I remember hearing stories. I'll leave it unnamed, but there was an unnamed celebrity. Again, very very wealthy man who went into a burger joint, right? And
Okay.
the guy, the burger joint guy, keep in mind, this is like a mom and pop business. This guy, I mean, he's not hurting by any means, but the owner of the business probably makes around six figures a year, in the mid six figures, when he's waiting on a guy who makes 100 times that, 200 times that, 300 times that. The celebrity comes in and the guy's like, "Hey, no charge to this guy here." And the guy insists. He's like, "Well, I got to pay for my food. Come on, I did eat a burger here." But he had to
Hmm.
argue with this guy to take his fucking money when this guy is like a mega 100 millionaire. Like it's
Hmm.
interesting how that works.
It's quite cheap to be rich.
It can be in some ways. Like I think, yeah, in terms of that, in terms of kind of the prestige and a lot of the free shit. Like you look at a celebrity grab bag. Like if you go to the Oscars and you're a celebrity, did you guys know there's like 30 grand worth of shit in that bag?
Hmm. Those are often used as like kind of treats to keep like celebrities' friends, like they
Yeah,
give them, oh look, I got like the brand new iPhone and
yeah.
like some kind of Birkin bag, and like a couple other things in there, like
That's
some designer scent or something, and yeah,
now.
here you go.
Now, what I'll tell you is that I don't necessarily think I think the wealthy people have other problems. I think they have a lot of
Oh
other
yes,
problems, and I
oh
don't think
yes.
it's healthy for them either.
No,
But
they're not having a
certainly,
good time.
yeah, certainly in terms of the free shit and just not having that burden of worrying about the day to day, definitely an advantage for sure. Um, I'm in a position in life now where I don't even have to, and maybe this is part of what's contributing to my backlog. I don't even have to think about when I buy a video game. If there's a video game I want, I just buy it. Like
Yeah,
you can give testament to the ridiculous amount of fucking shelf space that is devoted to the Switch on my. You've seen it.
listen,
You've seen it in real life.
I listen, I appreciate it. I benefit from it. I have access to your library for most games that you can't be playing at any given time, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, and I try to I try to do some good with it. One thing I try to do is loan games out, just be a loner,
Hmm.
and that works out. So people around me can like I tell people all the time, like if you know me, it's like don't buy Switch games. There's no point because literally I can't play 450 games at once, guys. I just can't, and I'm probably not playing the game you want. I'm probably not. So
Yep.
never be afraid to borrow. Wasn't there some story about somebody who donated their entire that was right here in Springfield, wasn't it? Where they
No, he donated his entire DVD library, and he had like 30,000 titles to
how
like a local
amazing
library.
is that?
Hmm. Pretty great.
Closest I ever got is there was a time bank and the thing he could bank, he banked his DVD collection. So like you could borrow like 5 DVDs and that was worth like a couple hours at the time bank or something like that. Like
Oh, that's
he
cool.
was like the DVD guy in the time bank. So it
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
worked that way, but not for money, for like time, because you know how time banks work.
Right, right, right.
That's about as close as I've ever seen it get here. But yeah, that would be, and he didn't have no 30,000. That's a hell of a fucking movie collection. And to think of all that is in a library accessible to that entire town now.
Now, I want to spring from your idea of, or not, rather, not your idea, because it's not your idea, but it's sort of all of our idea. But I want to spring from the idea of the time library, because that to me is kind of getting at sort of something we were bringing up earlier in the
Mhm.
show. So, the concept of a time library, like, in case you're people
Yeah, you
that
should explain
listen
that for
and
folks
watch.
that aren't me that don't know what
Mhm.
that is. Yeah.
Right. So, what that is it's an idea where you essentially have not a centralized organization, but a group of people who've decided that they're going to contribute time, their own time, towards other people who are part of this agreement. And for each hour you bank of your time, you can ask someone else from within that organization to give an hour of their time. And you can accumulate hours and spend them in that way. So if you are, for instance, a dentist, you could log hours of helping somebody with their tooth in exchange for having your gutters cleaned.
Hmm.
And what the interesting thing about that is that one, it tracks something that really is the only, you might say, fungible currency. It's not, or rather non-fungible currency. The
Time.
only thing we can't in some way exchange, which is our time. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And it also
even Adam Smith
has,
bowed to it. Adam Smith said that all currency ultimately is a calculation of time spent.
but it also, the time bank in particular, it allots the dignity that people are of relative equal importance. That actually your gutters being cleaned are just as important as your tooth being removed. Um, and so, like, there's that aspect of it, which I think is really important. But another aspect is just focusing how much it matters how we spend our time.
Well, and yeah, just
So
think
like,
about it, and just to kind of deal with there's some people I can hear it right now that would say, and to play devil's advocate, they would say, well, that's absurd. Like the dentist is equal to the gutter cleaner, and the answer to that is, if you don't get your gutters cleaned, what happens, guys?
Mhm.
The
Mhm.
foundation of your house will crack. That's
Yep.
what'll happen. If you
Yep.
don't get the tooth pulled, you'll literally fucking die. Hate to
Yep.
tell you, you'll die.
That's
Almost
right.
happened to me a couple years back. Don't
Mhm.
don't wait on either of those things. You might think that, oh, it's just annoying that it's just rain sloshing off where it shouldn't be. No, it's sloshing off where it shouldn't be, and it's seeping. It's going right into your next to your foundation of your house, and that water will erode
That's right.
the foundation. Your foundation is usually fucking a concrete slab, and concrete, even less than rock, cannot stand up. It cannot stand up to that over time. So
Well, right. And
it's
and,
it's
and that's
important.
that
It's
it demonstrates the relative dignity, our I feel like it's an important part of entering into a sort of organization like that where you are trusting that other people are going to treat your time as importantly as you would treat theirs.
I'm a big proponent of
Um,
mutual aid, and at the end of the day, what it comes down to is mutual aid. Like
right.
it's mutual aid accounted for is all it is.
Sure. But we are here to talk about video games, right?
Yeah, yeah, you know how
And
I am. I get off on tangents, man.
uh-huh, uh-huh. But the time bank thing, that strikes me that, we pay attention to what it is that we do, you know. And if we were in a time bank and you were a dentist and I were a gutter cleaner, I would not try to tell you about cleaning gutters, and you would not try to tell me about being you would not try to. I would not try to tell you about being a dentist, and you would not try to tell me about cleaning gutters.
And I'm the last
And
one that can
it
tell
just
you
strikes me,
anything about either one.
yeah. So what I want to talk about is, we've discussed a couple of things like this in the past, basically, but there is, and I really feel like we are facing something like a second Gamergate in the face at the moment. It's just kind of
Oh,
uh,
every day,
oscillating and growing and fading and growing and fading, and
every
it's just like
day,
kind of
man.
kind of a little fire in the background that grows up and then falls back, and it's just a little issue that we always have to deal with now.
And by
And
the way, you had a perfect response to the new little micro outrage, because I was telling you about it. I was telling you how frustrated I am with the discussion surrounding this. And do you remember what you told me? And it is the perfect response. And I just wish more of us would just use this more often. What did you tell me, B?
was it I don't care.
I don't care. Yes, exactly. I
I
don't
guess,
care.
like, right, yeah. So I'm a person that plays video games. I like to play them. I play a lot of them. Spend a lot of my hours doing that, playing the games. Um, and I make an emphasis on that because I think there are a lot of people's whose hobby they claim is video games,
Yeah.
but it's actually not. Their actual hobby is bitching about video games online and owning people on the other side and producing content and commenting on content and attending and viewing and watching and
Yeah.
liking and spending money on content, all of it.
Hey, I
Yep,
resemble that remark, but go
I'm
on.
aware. Well, but, I mean, I think there's space, obviously, for criticism. There's space for discussion. I think I'm not trying to
No, of
throw
course.
all that away and shove it aside, but I do think that there is a perverse incentive, in particular, with the mediums that we are working with. These mediums that people publish on,
Such as
they
YouTube.
produce a perverse incentive, right? Yeah, but not exclusively YouTube. I don't want to
Twitter
single them out.
Twitter too is bad. In fact, Twitter is the one driving this.
Oh well, sure. I mean, there's reasons for that as well, um, which we don't need to get into because they're pretty well known. But yeah, I guess I feel like there's a lot of people whose number one big hobby is being mad about like really unimportant, like pretty pathetic stuff online. And it's weird because like it's pretty much just in support of like a relatively small but diverse community of content producers who basically just outrage bait all day long. They just produce content. They just find some nitpick and start a conversation about it, and then they are platformed due to the outrage. Um, this becomes the conversation. It doesn't matter if like why should we care about this? Like
Right.
why should I care that the face of a character from Silent Hill 2 is slightly fatter in the new remake, which will be dog shit because everything that Konami produces is dog shit.
Fuck
It will
Konami
be a
news.
pachinko game. It will be a pachinko game. And you'll love it. You'll spend money on it, and as long as you keep spending money on it, like my question is like, if you guys are so interested in like the return of Silent Hill, why do you think they started with Silent Hill 2? Why didn't we get a remake of Silent Hill 1? We got a remake of Silent Hill 2 because they know that's what you like. They know you like Pyramid Head. And
Yeah,
so they're going to make a Pyramid Head game. That's like, do you get it? Like this isn't going to be a faithful reproduction. They
literally.
aren't doing
By the
this
way,
because they love their story. They're doing this because you guys like Pyramid Head, and we're going to spend money to make more money because they are a pachinko company. Like anyone
it's
who
amazing.
has anything to say about the new Silent Hill game, except for there's two things that you really are allowed to say. And the first one is, holy shit, I don't care because it will be a shitty pachinko game.
Mhm.
Even if it's not, by the way, it will be at its heart and spirit and soul, at its deepest point. It will be a pachinko game. But the other second part that is good is that we will be getting a new soundtrack by the original director, Akira Yamaoka, I think is something I can't quite pronounce it, but his
Yeah.
music is spectacular, and they can't pachinkoize his new soundtrack. So we will get something spectacular and Silent Hill out of this, whether they like it or not. So that's pretty cool. But nobody's talking about that for sure.
No, and we should be because Homeboy doesn't miss. And every soundtrack, I think the first time I really fell in love with his music was Silent Hill 2. Or no, it was
Yeah,
actually, I'm sorry, it was Silent Hill 3 because my girlfriend at the time, who wasn't even a gamer, but she had the OST for Silent Hill 3. I'll never forget that.
that's
Never
right.
forget
Yeah.
that.
Hmm.
That's how much that music penetrated the norm. Like, girl had never played a Silent Hill game, but she heard that music basically in a store and said, I need that.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm positive on that front. Like, and the other Silent Hill like news that is interesting on in my perspective, it's not directly a Silent Hill news because it can't be because Konami owns the pachinko Silent Hill.
Fuck Konami.
But Hide, Hideo Kojima is working on a horror project with
Yes.
Hunter Schafer, and it's got like all these reference, and also it's Jordan Peele. And now before it's got all these references to the playable teaser, and before he was working on it with Benicio del Toro, and we know there's at least one more collaborator on the new horror piece that's with Jordan Peele and Hunter Schafer. And so, like, I feel like that's our new Silent Hill spiritual successor. It's going to be something that Hideo Kojima produces, which, like, I mean, I love Kojima, so
Well, yeah. I mean, anything. Like, think about the names you just gave, right? You got
yeah, right,
you got Kojima, fantastic.
hmm
Say what you want. Say what
absolutely.
you want about needing to rein him in writing wise. That's what Jordan Peele's for. Also fantastic. That's what Del Toro is for. Fantastic.
Hmm.
Hunter
If they
Schafer.
have Del Toro, those, yeah.
Hunter Schafer. She's fantastic in everything that she's in.
Hmm.
Fantastic actor. Um,
He
I
has a
I'm
way of like
pumped.
picking these people out, like he did it with a couple of other actors, like he did it with Mads Mikkelsen. He did it with oh, I forget the name of that actor who plays in The Walking Dead.
Well, he's a fan of Sergio Leone movies, and if you know anything about
Yeah, yeah,
Sergio
Norman
Leone,
Reedus.
yeah, Norman Reedus. Um,
Yeah, Norman Reedus.
Sergio Leone was famous for not picking people in his cast because of their acting acumen. He would pick people because of literally the distinctive way they looked. That
Hmm.
added
And
a
presented
distinctive
themselves. Yeah.
flair and presentation, yes, to his films. And you can see that too. Like, how the fuck can you get me excited for a game that is just a trailer of a woman screaming?
Yeah,
But he
again,
did it.
it's they don't have anything else. They don't have anything. Like I'm gonna be real with you. Like, they cancel me if you want, but I haven't watched any of the shit for this new Silent Hill game, and I'm
You're
right.
not missing anything.
All I am right. All you people that went out and watched it are wrong. I'm right because it's gonna be terrible, and you wasted your time. And the fact that you're literally having arguments about this, about the fatness of a woman's face, is pathetic and embarrassing, to be honest. Like,
I'm gonna call some
and
people out too here. Not by
this has
name,
been
but
the whole conversation lately.
yeah. I've had a couple of conversations with people I respect, and it's everything from, well, she just needs to stop hitting the cheeseburgers and stop hitting the Chinese bar, the all you can eat, to well, you have to understand there's a real concern to be had about wellness and fitness, and we don't want to be presenting the wrong message to young. Like, shut up, stop
I mean,
it.
there's a time and a place for that, but like these
That's
things
not
take
what they're
place in
talking.
a context.
Yeah, but that's not
These
what
things
they're talking
take place in
about.
a
They're
context.
they're talking about,
No,
we
they're
don't like
not.
this game will be bad because heavy woman in game, so game bad. That's
Yeah,
all this is.
like, listen, there are well-meaning actors who who speak about, like, there are well-meaning actors who are interested in promoting wellness. Let's just put it that way. I think that's true, but I don't think any of them are involved in the conversation about the fatness of a video game character's face.
No, I
I
think
just don't believe that.
I think we're doing the thing that you point out so often. I think they are switching cause and effect. They're confusing cause for effect. So
Yeah.
that's what's going on here. It's absolutely what's going on because nobody's talking about the actual. Like, let me name some issues that I have with Silent Hill 2. There's no goddamn fog, despite the fact that they have the best hardware that they've ever had access to. There's no goddamn fog in the game. Mary is plastered on the front of the fucking box prominently. That tells me, Victor V, that they don't understand Silent Hill 2. That tells me
Right.
right there. They don't understand this game. You've got James looking in a mirror at the beginning of the game and like crying. They don't understand. They don't understand the game they're making.
I mean,
Um,
listen, they're making it because they understand that you like it. You like these things, right? You like Pyramid Head. You like that. Like, you like the nurses. You like them. You're gonna see them. Like, that's what it is. Like, they're just mining your nostalgia and your joy for something that they own the property rights to. That's it.
they don't meet in the park anymore, in the park area anymore. Now they meet in this. The gazebo has basically been moved lakeside now, just for the fucking shot, just because
Hmm.
cinema. Like
Hmm.
they do not respect this thing. And I'm not talking about Bloober Team. Not even getting into Bloober Team. I'm talking about Conan.
Hmm.
They don't
Yep.
respect this thing that you love so much.
No. No.
How could it be
And
anything
like
but bad?
and to be fair, like, I'm willing to bet there's an enormous amount of clapping seals out there who really are only mad about the fatness of a character's face, and they're not upset about any of the other legitimate things about it. But like, I guess the point that I'm frustrated with, and that, like, I kind of wanted to talk about coming on here, is the fact that why are we talking about this at all? The only reason we're talking about this is at all is because a number of prominent, well-paid, many times over inflated viewed people are watching it and stoking up this horse shit. And it is pathetic, and it is making us all look terrible. And these are all people speaking and like acting in the name of gamer Americans. Gamers rise up. Gamers have a voice now, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
Like,
whatever.
you can't spend all your time on the internet yelling at people about gamers' rights and claim to be a gamer. You're not playing any video games, are you? So many of these people have like horrible takes on games, and then you find out, oh, they never played it in the first place. they show up into things and start screaming about wokeness and having all these opinions, and then suddenly they become experts on things they've never played or even showed interest in before.
Yeah.
Like they accuse people of invading their hobbies when those people are in good faith trying to actually just participate, and then they show up screaming at people about changes to things they've never even been interested for in the past. It's
One of the things I talk about,
almost like their hobby is just stirring up shit and not actually playing video games.
so it's a real issue because again, the times aren't getting better, right? So we've got a macroeconomic decline going on right now. We're looking at some
Mhm.
very turbulent economic headwinds going on. I mean, bad.
Right.
In times like this, the only reason it's important, I can't stress this enough, guys. Look at your gaming history. It's something me and Joey Ferris, when he comes on, are going to discuss. If you remove the Nintendo Wii from that generation, and you just have the 360 and the PlayStation 3, gaming was a massive, monumental failure and decline from the prior
Mhm.
generation in
Mhm.
terms of
Mhm.
customers created.
Mhm.
Now, I haven't done the macroeconomic analysis. It might still be a decline, but it's a slight decline with the Wii. Without the Wii, it is a it's if Wile E. Coyote fell off the fucking cliff without the Wii and the DS. Now, keep in mind, do you remember what happened in that time period that caused that monumental decline? Now, people will say it's because there were bad games. Bullshit. There were good games on all three of those systems. What happened
I mean,
was the
we had an economic
macroeconomic.
crisis.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Great Recession. Exactly.
Mhm.
Great Recession happened. People didn't have any fucking money. And as a result, almost 200 game studios went under. Less studios means less games. And keep in mind, that was with a disruptive innovator that was bringing new customers into the market. I am very concerned about this next generation. Very concerned because what seems to be happening, you have two companies that don't give a fuck about bringing in expanded audience. They don't give a shit.
Mhm.
And then you've got
It's actually
Nintendo.
so funny. The CEO of PlayStation recently came out and said that he thought that PC gamers were going to buy a PS5 so they can play the exclusives on there.
No.
Like going forward, that's their plan. Their plan is to try to get Steam users away from Steam playing PlayStation 5
And
games. Like
here's the brilliance of it, V. They're going to do this by putting all of their games on Steam.
they're living in another planet. They really are living on
Do
another
you
planet. It
motherfuckers
makes
know
no sense.
you just put God of War 2 on Steam? You just announced God of War 2 for Steam, you fucking morons. But they're going to buy PlayStation 5 for the exclusives that you just keep giving them. What? Huh? Huh?
Here's the thing, like I think we maybe discussed this once before, but like don't underestimate the spike factor here. Like
Oh,
I wanted to
Jesus.
play Horizon Zero Dawn badly, very badly for a long time, and it wasn't available. They said no, fuck you. You don't get to play.
Yeah, they
You
usually give
go
it
buy a
2 years.
PlayStation
Yeah,
5.
it's about 2 years. Yeah.
Well, people swore up and down we'd never get Horizon Zero Dawn. And, along with Bloodborne, which is still unrequited, by the way, there are quite a few games that
Right.
were exclusive like that. And now I can get Horizon Zero Dawn now, but the time and my interest has passed and it has been replaced with a bitter sort of meh. And so ultimately what happened was they lost a customer. They lost a customer because of their bad behavior. Like I would have bought the game at the time that I wanted to buy it if they would have let me buy it, but they didn't, banking on the fact that I would make a purchase 10 times the magnitude. And that's, that thing you were talking about earlier about going after people who have the most money, but it did cost them a customer. I would have bought that game,
Sure.
but yeah, my interest has waned. I'm just not interested. There's
The
too many fucking games to
the
play.
other well, that's the thing. The other thing they've forgotten about is that video, and only Nintendo seems to be the only company that remembers this. Video games are a momentum based business. Video games, for the
Mhm,
most
mhm.
part, are not evergreen products. Very rarely. And it's ironic that the one company who understands that video games are a momentum-based business is also the company that is able to produce these evergreen games over and over again. It's kind of interesting how that happens that way.
Well, we do have an exception to that, or I guess not an exception, but like a natural sort of. I mean, look at what happened with Fallout.
Right.
Fallout 4. Like, this is really funny because
Well, but I wouldn't say that
you know
was
Bethesda
natural,
invested
though.
in.
Yeah.
No, that's what I'm pointing out here is that how badly this was planned. Like they needed a game to distribute along with this show, and they didn't have one. Like
No,
it's
no,
it,
which
it
means
was
they
especially
went
funny
back
to
and
me
fucked
that
up Fallout 4 in New Vegas, is what they did.
yeah, but it was especially funny to me that like the obvious answer here is 76, but just nobody bought it. Like nobody even tried. They just like that was really funny to me. The fact that they went straight back to 4. They're like, no, that one's pretty good. Let's go play the good one. Who cares if it's not multiplayer? That's not what we're here for. We're here to be the lone wanderer, right? Like, I don't know.
You mean
76 is
you
just
mean you don't want live service experiences?
the best thing to ever come out of Fallout 76 was the live service occurrence of Phil Spencer's camp getting nuked by somebody else.
That's amazing.
That's good. That was great. That was good. But
Oh,
other than that, I don't think
there
76
was
is worth it.
also some amazing things going on in those servers. Wasn't there something? Because they did a thing where like there were paid people and there were unpaid people.
Oh God.
And the paid people were literally I'm sure you remember this if I can lay it out properly. But the people you had the paid people, and then you had what the people who proudly called themselves the wasties, who wouldn't pay for that extra tier. And the wasties literally started getting together and attacking the people who paid for Bethesda Net or whatever, started attacking their fucking shit. And it was
It's
some
unironically based.
actual shit that was going on in the servers.
Mm-hmm. Actually based shit.
And so
Yeah, that
it
rocks.
caused Bethesda to like reverse it. They're like, okay, well, we can't do this because first they asked them, like, please don't attack the paid for content people. Please don't target them.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no, fuck you. We're going to continue to target their shit. We're going to continue to steal from them and nuke them and attack their bases. And then finally, well, wasties unite. And it,
It's yet another in a long line of Bethesda being unable to get up off of standing on their own dick. Like they have literally been standing on their own dick this whole time. They cannot fucking move forward. Like with Fallout 4, they're like, "Oh, like people are interested in modding this game. Well, let's monetize it and produce the Creation Club," which everyone just collectively vomited and like turned away from it, right? And it's just like it doesn't seem like
so,
they can ever actually land anything. Like they produce a fantastic show, but they have no follow up. They don't have a game. Like they haven't even started working on a Fallout game. Like literally, like a week after the show became successful, they were like, we've got a Fallout game working." Like they had no head totally empty, no plan. Like, did they think it was going to be a bad show?
I don't know. Meanwhile, I don't know what they're going to do. Skyrim just came out. Lordbound just got announced to have a release date. It'll be out by the end of the year. That's going to add the Drudark Highlands from Breton in from High Rock in a 60-hour main quest with 3 factions, and it looks to be better than what Bethesda gave us in the main Skyrim game.
I mean, that's not a super big challenge. Like again, Bethesda doesn't make good stories. They make good
They
sandboxes, play
used to.
boxes. They're good to play in.
They
Yeah.
used to. They sure used to.
Uh,
They did one. Okay, they did one time. That's true
I was like, I feel like I think there's an accident that
Daggerfall
one
and
time.
Arena were also not great, honestly.
Yeah, I really feel like they just had some people who were on drugs and like they just
But one
were
guy
at the
in
limit.
specific that was.
Yeah, and they were at the limit of their company. They threw their whole,
Lord
they let
Mike
it all hang
Kirkbride.
out. Yeah.
We stand Lord Michael Kirkbride here.
Yeah, they threw
Um,
their whole pussy at it because they had nothing left to leave on the table.
it was done. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was game over. If that game didn't do it or something, it was game over.
Hmm. Necessity is the mother.
You always get it. Just seems like same thing with like the Sega Dreamcast. Like when you when you know that you're making what may be your last game, things seem to excel. Look at like fucking Shinmu on the Dreamcast, right? Like,
It does seem like the more creative like spirit that produces these beautiful games, that these like fantastic things, like it doesn't seem like they really understand how to capture it. And when I say they, I mean like companies in general.
and
Like
yeah, and it's
they,
not just Bethesda. Yeah, look at Miyamoto and Super Mario Brothers 3. They've been chasing the fucking Super Mario Brothers 3 dream for
Mhm.
almost 30 years now.
Well, you and I just like recently watched the new Furiosa movie, right?
Oh, it's so good.
And I won't give away any
Go
like
see it.
major spoilers,
Everybody
but
go
yeah,
see it.
please
You
go
have
see it
to.
in
Please
theaters.
go
It's
see
totally
it.
worth seeing in theaters. It's really great.
And it's
Yeah.
not doing well right
Um,
now, and it's not the
I
movie's
will.
fault.
No, it's just because people don't go see movies. But I mean,
Nobody has
honestly,
any
theaters
money,
have been
and
better than. I'm actually going to make a rare pro theater argument here because in general I'm not super into movies, but I've been really enjoying the theaters lately, largely because like you don't have to buy snacks because they literally have lost their give a fuck. Like me and my girlfriend went into the theater last night with like my water bottle in my hand and a backpack full of snacks that she had.
well,
Like
what are they gonna do?
they don't
You're the only
fucking
customer.
care.
You're
Yeah,
their only
exactly. That's the
customer.
other
Are they gonna
thing.
tell you
That's
get
the other
out?
thing is that like multiple times that we've gone to movies recently, we've been the only people there, and they've been showing old timey movies. Like we saw Spirited Away and we saw The Mummy 1999 in theaters in one day double feature. Like that was a sick date. Like that rocked. It was a lot of
That's
fun.
the
But anyway,
future. I feel like.
I don't want to give like so go to the theaters. They're worth going to. If there's nobody in there, you can just chat with your date and like laugh and snack, and it's a
It's true.
blast.
It's
And
very true. There
don't
were
leave a
like
mess
four
for the people
people.
who
There were
run the
like four
place.
other people with
Yeah,
us when we went and saw it. There were like four people.
yeah, but not to give. I don't want to give anything from the movie, but there is a character in it, a bad guy, and it seems like his like only reaction to encountering something remarkable, something beautiful, something unique, is to put it in a fucking cage. And I feel like that's exactly what ruins these games when they produce these beautiful things, like Baldur's Gate 3, for example. Like they produced something gorgeous, and they destroyed it. They ruined it. Like they can't help it. They have to do it. Like
To
I
give
they
to give
I
to
y
give
these
context,
things
we,
were produced
yeah,
on accident.
yeah. To give context, they literally they responded to the wild success of the greatest game of 2024, and yeah, eat shit, Tears of the Kingdom, the best game of 2024, which was Baldur's Gate 3. In terms of objectively the best game of 2024. I'm a Nintendo fan. I'm not afraid to say that. Yeah, Nintendo kind of shit the bed with Tears of the Kingdom as far as I'm concerned personally. But that's aside
Listen,
from the point.
I don't think it's a fair comparison because I really think Baldur's Gate 3 was a barn burner. I think it would have made anything look bad next to it. Like for the most part, I haven't seen a game like that in a long time, and I've been
Still got
playing
to
video
compete.
games for a really long time. So
You still got to compete. Just because something amazing that you could not compare to came up, no excuses. Like you're
yeah,
the Legend of fucking Zelda. Nut up. But they couldn't, and that's
I mean,
okay.
I haven't played Tears because I mean, we've talked about like a couple of things that I'm just like, maybe, I might play it. Like, but like I got really excited a couple of times to replay Breath of the Wild, and every time I get like up to the first dungeon, and I'm like, I'm good. I remember this game. I'm cool.
I adore
Like,
Breath of the Wild,
something about it.
but I was almost derailed the last time I played it by that awful sneaking mission in
Oh yeah,
the banana base. I can't think of the fucking name of the group of people.
I know what you
The
mean.
Yao
The
Guai
gang.
clan. No, that's Yao Guai.
No, the
Yeah, Yao Guai is
Yiga clan.
Yiga clan.
Yeah,
Yeah, Yao Guai is fucking
yeah.
Fallout. I got Fallout on the brain. Ah.
I
But
mean,
anyway,
it's
that
a
derailed my
yeah.
playthrough. But what I was saying is to go back to Baldur's Gate 3 to give context on what V was talking about there. They responded to the absolutely phenomenal fiery success of Baldur's Gate 3 by firing their entire Dungeons and Dragons staff basically. They went they laid off almost all of them.
Yeah, they really put a 9 mil up to a golden goose's head and pulled the trigger. They said, "Go, good night.
Yep,
We
and
just needed one
keep in
egg,
mind Sven
thanks."
Vink said that like, hey, we made the game, but we didn't craft that universe. And whenever we had a question, guess who we would go to? Those people that they just laid off. And as a result of this, we are unable to make a sequel to Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
because those
like I
people
mean,
aren't fucking there anymore.
yeah, like when you first start playing Baldur's Gate 3, like just as like one of a trillion examples from within the game, like, and I'm
Yes,
probably not
literally a
even
trillion.
exaggerating.
Literally a trillion.
Yeah, like the existent the whole structure, the narrative structure of the brainworms is such a stroke of writing genius. It does so much work for making a Dungeons and Dragons game function on a video game, like you can have conversations with your party members without them like interfering. It's like it really fits in and makes the whole story work really well. And it also is literally advertising a there are a lot of different fantasy settings out there with a lot of different unique monsters and creatures and bad guys and all sorts of things that make them cool and unique that are
Yes.
distinct. A lot of them are lifted from Dungeons and Dragons, you know,
Uh-huh.
but none of them have anything like mind flayers. And so mind flayers are like uniquely a D&D thing, and this worm thing is just it's so I don't know, like that is one of the biggest coups I would say in the whole game that ties it together that makes it so effective. And I know Larian Studios did not come up with that idea. They didn't. That was some egghead nerd or a team of eggheads who love D&D who were like, "Hey, what if the brainworms that turn you into a mind flayer got slowed down and used to control your brain instead?"
Well, not only that,
You
but the
know,
way they lump it into the overall narrative, the way the game just goes and goes and goes and goes and goes. There's about 7 or 8 encounters that I've heard about in this game that you
mhm.
would think would be a final boss fight, and it's not.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I had there's a devil that taunts you throughout the whole game. And there's all sorts of ways you can deal with him, but one of them is to fight him at the end. And when you fight him, his it's just so striking. Like the scene is visually gorgeous. You've been building up to it the whole game. Like the actual conflict takes place in an incredible setting. He becomes this hideous monster, and the music hits over the top of all of it and it opens on a strong vocal note from the excellent female singer, and it sort of echoes the main theme, but kind of has its own kind of demonic tendency. And then it goes directly into a verse of him singing about how he's going to destroy you with poetic references to how he's been to referring you the whole game. Like it's so cool and such an arc bad guy like moment, and it's not even the end of the game. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
very cool.
it's um yeah, it's literally like they cracked it. They cracked the code. They together collectively with that Dungeons and Dragons team, they were able to put a dungeon master in your video game, and that to someone if you've never played a tabletop role play game before, we always used to talk about how that was fucking impossible,
Hmm.
and they did it. They
Hmm.
actually did it.
Yeah, like a lot of games, I think like when we talk about choice in them, I really feel like BioShock Infinite made an excellent point that had not been answered by video games until Baldur's Gate 3. And that was the choices you present us is bullshit. They're bullshit. And we all know it. That's why we didn't
Ah,
like Skyrim. That's why we didn't like Oblivion. That's why we didn't like these games. It's also, by the way, why people don't like Fallout 4. You don't get a choice. Not really, Austin. Oh,
you gotta play and this is why again it's the same trajectory as Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate actually took this trajectory and ran with it, but you gotta play Ultima 7,
yeah, I know. That's old though, man.
the
You're
Black
asking
Gate.
a lot.
Well, I am because here's the thing. After Baldur's Gate 3, I can't even go back. The plan was for me to go back and play BG1 and BG2. I couldn't even do that, and those are 2000.
Brutal.
Those are early 2000s games. Um,
Yeah,
Ultima
I don't think
7, the
so.
Black Gate is from 1992.
Good lord.
So is Star Control 2, but I think Star Control 2 would be a little more manageable for you, to be honest. It's different. It's a space combat game, basically.
Oh yeah, I've seen some
Believe
of
me.
that footage of that, and I do think that would
Yeah, that was
be
my footage. That was my footage. Yeah.
genuinely playable. Yeah, I do think that would be
Or
playable.
no, you were over here. You watched me play it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's a lot of that game's a lot of fun. But yeah, go look up Ultima 7 and yeah, it's rough and it's overhead and it's slow and choppy and oh yeah, it's a open world full your choices matter game in 1992. So take that
Hmm.
what you will. But they did it. They actually did it.
Yeah.
I would say Morrowind to some extent does it. Not to the same extent as like nowhere near Baldur's Gate or Ultima 7 because you're always going to climb Red Mountain and you're always going to slay Dagoth, unless you choose not
Hmm.
to do the main
Hmm.
quest. That's always how that
Right.
is. That's always how that resolves. There is no other way. Um,
Right.
there's a mod for that, but that's not fair because now you're talking about the collective energy for 20, 30 years of a community.
Right. Yeah. Like
Yeah, it's not
modding.
fair.
mm, Although, like, I do think, like, so you can't like directly add like the content of mods to the quality of a game
Correct.
like one to one, but I do think games that have the capacity to be open ended in that way do have a generalized advantage over, like, let's say, an equivalently good game that doesn't have it.
Yeah, would either of us
Like,
still be talking about Morrowind if not for Tamriel Rebuilt? I mean,
no,
the answer is
probably not.
yes, but
No.
but we wouldn't be playing it. We'd be talking about it, maybe not playing it.
Yeah, I mean, I had that playthrough like a few years ago that was like Vanilla Plus or whatever, but it got broken pretty directly like by the actual like game itself that
Because it's
like it
Bethesda.
wasn't
Because it's
modded.
fucking
So
Bethesda.
yeah, and I still am kind of twitchy about that moment in the game every time I approach it. So that's kind of where I'm at in the current playthrough, and I'm worried that it will happen again. So I've been avoiding it and playing Fallout instead, which
Yeah,
is
that's what
fine,
I'm doing
really.
too. I'm leaving Morrowind alone. I finally cried myself off it. I'm leaving it alone. I'm actually going to skip the initial release of Abekian Shores. Sorry guys, I am.
Hmm.
I'm a big Discord user on that server, but gotta skip that one. I'm going to the next time I fire up Morrowind will be Grasping Fortune when
Well,
Narxus
frankly,
releases.
like
That's
I
next year.
think that's like, I mean, I'm probably gonna come back to Grasping Fortune myself. I mean, maybe Red Wisdom. Like I've got like some plans for that too,
Well,
actually,
yeah,
for
Red
some
Wisdom is
for some character
that'll be
stuff.
there for whenever you're ready. Yeah, because it's out.
Yeah, we'll see. Like I think I might want Grasping Fortune just so I can have like a different path to go with. Like as far as there's gonna be like new faction representation and stuff like that. I think that's all really interesting. But
It's the yeah,
to
it's
get
it's the Halalu. It's the Halalu capital.
I'm trying desperately not to fall into the Morrowind hole because we totally could talk about it. But
Oh, I
I,
know.
I
I know.
do I do really want you to play through Fallout 4 because I have spent, like I said before, I've spent like 56, 57 hours or so on Fallout New Vegas. I've spent about 500 hours on Fallout 4,
Yeah, I'm getting ready to
and
do the DLC and getting ready to do the DLC. I'm taking a quick break because I'm now at the place where I met the head of the institute. He's a dick, and he booted
yeah,
me. He booted me out. He kicked me out, guys, and he kicked me out the door. He kicked me out the damn door. So now it's just a matter of like, okay, that happened. So how do we handle this? And in the meantime, I'm gonna go do a whole bunch of other shit. As is
yeah,
my
and
tradition in Fallout games, is like I get all the way to the apex of the story, then I go explore and do a bunch of shit. Now that I've actually got enough levels and perks to have fun doing that extra shit,
mhm,
and then I go finish
mhm.
the game.
And that's classic, kind of like Bethesda and like
Yep.
RPG, like semi-open world RPG stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm doing that right now. I decided because I was having a longing here in V playing New Vegas, so I actually spent today playing New Vegas, and gosh, I forgot how much progress you can make so fast in that game.
Yeah, if you know what you're doing and where to go, you can grow very quickly. Like I had that first playthrough that like I told you all about that I kind of
Yes.
struggled with.
Oh
I
yeah.
struggled like the whole time. And I really feel like I was trying to make Fallout 4 into or Fallout New Vegas into Fallout 4. Like I was really focusing on the gunplay, like in the way that Fallout 4 kind of excels, by comparison. And yeah, I'm just a lot happier with the melee build that I have on the second time around, kind of knowing what to expect with some of the factions and the stories. You know, it's certainly certainly been an improved experience the second time around.
Um, take a look at the comments real quick. We got a couple more. Question: when you're asking me for my Discord handle, are you asking for my username or display name or server name on Discord? Gosh, I'm the wrong person for these kind of questions, but let me try here. So, V, maybe you can help me. You've been using Discord longer than me. The name that I'm looking at, the name I would send the friend request to, Brooke on, what would that be? Would that be the name I'm looking at? Like, so for example, if I look here and let's say we'll use Brandon because
You
I just
wanna
talked to him, would Brandon be the handle I send that to? I don't think that's right.
you wanna click the little symbol of your name at the bottom left of your Discord screen.
Okay.
Underneath the voice connected thing, it'll pop up. Then there will be like your name and that you currently have, and then below it there will be like an all lowercase thing.
That's
That
the
will be
handle.
your
Okay. Yep.
actual,
Okay.
yeah, that's your actual username.
Okay. So,
Mhm.
Brooke, you can add me. It's flipping the switch, all lowercase. Flipping the switch. And if you want to send me a friend request, once I get done with this, I will accept that. Okay. And then we can
You
talk.
you know what, Keithius? I think you're right about the mind flayers. I kind of forgot about that, but I think they were in that. I wonder if which came first.
Oh, it was absolute
I
Final
would,
Fantasy is an
yeah,
80s, so it's absolutely Dungeons and Dragons.
yeah, I would guess it probably is still D&D.
Final
Yeah.
Fantasy was like 1989, 1990.
Mm,
So
mhm. I would
100%.
I would love to see like kind of trace the influence of like classic D&D style like dungeon stuff to JRPGs
It's the
because
very first. You can I can give
like
the I can give it to
mimics
you.
and stuff, right?
I give
Yeah.
it to you right now. It
Mhm.
was Dungeons and Dragons and other tabletop games, and then it was Wizardry and Ultima, roughly concurrent. And then
Mhm.
from Wizardry and Ultima, you had Dragon Quest. And these are the popular. Now there were other games in these genres. These are the popular ones, right? You had Dragon Quest, and then you had Final Fantasy. That
Mhm.
is the and literally these games came from. And you also have Legend of Zelda in a different trajectory and offshoot. Legend of Zelda was came about after Miyamoto, in part, was impressed so much by games like Ultima 3.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, of course, if you ask Ultima, he'll or if you ask Miyamoto, he'll shrug and play the stupid old man act and pretend he doesn't know what an Ultima is, which is just amazingly intellectually dishonest. I've seen him do it in at least 2 interviews now. And then meanwhile, it's like, motherfucker, I can pull an interview up of you talking about going to a conference to listen to Richard Garriott talk, motherfucker. Don't fucking bullshit me with your fucking rewriting of history. Zelda's
He
the
is really
black sheep.
old, to be
Zelda
fair.
2's the black sheep of the family guy. Fucking kiss my nuts. I'm sick of that shit. Get so tired. I get so fucking tired of Nintendo rewriting their own history, but that's a whole nother rabbit hole. You're just lying. Stop lying to people. Anyway, what were we talking about?
Um, Fallout. It's great.
Yes, and Fallout and how great it is. But yeah, I remember Mind Flayers and Final Fantasy Tactics. I need to play Tactics. I confess. And then also there were Mind Flayers in Demon Souls as well. Demon Souls also took Mind Flayers and kind of did a thing with it. They were the dungeon guards in that awful
Oh, I
Tower
mean,
of Lost
yeah,
Dream.
they're certainly referenced,
But
but
those
they
are
are like
references, yeah.
very identifiably like so. Same with the mimic, right? Like, and the gelatinous cube, like
Yeah,
they had
those are
like a
references.
mhm. The D&D movie had like a concerted push. Like those were some of and like the displacer beast too. The like puma with the tentacles that can teleport.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of which, have you seen Eye Patch Wolf's The World of Fake Video Games yet?
No, but we've discussed it, and that is a
Oh
really cute. That's a
my
really cute idea.
god.
I love the art that they produce for that kind of thing. That is lovely as hell.
That dark fantasy game at the end
Mhm,
he
mhm,
talks about.
mhm,
I
mhm.
ordered the books. I still don't have them, but I ordered both those books, the guides for the fake video games.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, they actually sell the guides to a game that doesn't exist, and it's got the art, it's got the assets, everything but the fucking video game. And it is very, I love it because it's creative enough. Because there's another one called Apple Quest. It's kind of the same thing that he talks about. And what this is it
Hmm.
allows people who have creative ideas but don't have the technical know-how to make a video game to
Uh-huh.
make a video game.
They present an aesthetic.
Yeah, aesthetic is very
Hmm.
important. Good
Hmm.
bring up there. Yes, it's
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
aesthetic of a video game, which, honest to God, is 3/4 of the battle.
Yep.
We can fill in the blanks of our imagination or what it would be like to play that game once we have that stuff.
I think that was part of like the success of Baldur's Gate as well. Is it was aesthetically pleasing. Previous D&D games I feel have been like almost too childish and like forgive it, but like nerdy and sexless, right? And I do think Baldur's Gate 3 like did away with a lot of that. It had a lot
Boy,
of, you
it made
know,
up for that and then some, didn't it?
sure, yeah.
Is there
But
anything?
I don't just mean sexual content. I mean violence. I mean like abuse. Like they really covered a lot of ground in the game and like, you know,
One hundred percent.
you have a great amount of aesthetic control over your character. You can make your character look in a lot of different ways. Whereas like if you go back and look at like games like Divinity, a lot of people like I've had other people give me feedback, for instance, that they did not care for the character creator in Divinity. Like they did not they then so they have found it harder to connect with their character. You know, it does like especially in role playing games, it behooves the creators to let you like fool around with and make your character yours, so to speak.
I gave
And
Divinity a
Baldur's Gate
good
3 does that really well.
college try on the Switch. I was not successful. But I'm gonna give it another run. But yeah, it certainly seems like as good as those games are. And keep in mind, Divinity 2 is known as one of the greatest Western RPGs ever made, guys. It is.
Hmm.
But
Mechanically sound.
I still feel like that was a practice run for Baldur's Gate 3. I think Baldur's Gate 3 will honestly go down as one of the greatest games ever made. I think you'll talk. I think in the future we'll talk about it
Yeah.
in the same context as like your Mario threes or um
Hmm.
your trying to even think of games of that caliber. Like I can't even say Star Control 2 because nobody talks about Star Control 2 anymore. Like just those Ocarina of Time is one, even though it's not my favorite. It's most people's.
There just aren't role playing games with that kind of depth. They just don't exist. Like it's
There is one. There is one. It's Disco Elysium.
right.
It's
Yeah, I
close.
mean,
It's close, but it's
sure.
indie.
It's just they're extremely few and far between, and like to have one be so like lovingly and like overwhelmingly presented, like it is like it's obviously a AAA project, you know, in addition to being a passion project.
Yeah, and you're not a cop in this one. Whereas in Disco, yeah, you got to play that drunk ass cop guy.
I might get over that eventually. We'll see.
Oh, you got to. It's so good. It's so fucking good. The things you can do in that game. And you've got all the different voices that are talking to you. Speaking of which, there's another game that I actually recommend heartily to everybody. I'm going to play it a little bit more. Slay the Princess, I recommend to everybody.
Hmm.
Hearty recommendation for Slay the Princess.
Yeah, I have looked at that one a couple of times. It does seem
It's
like pretty
interesting.
cool and
Yeah,
hmm
it's more than what what it would have to be. There's a princess in a cabin, and your job is to go there and kill this princess to save the world.
right.
Go in, kill the princess, save the world. That's it. At least that's the premise, but we all know that's not it because there would not be
Yeah, I
a game.
really doubt it.
There would not be a game there. And I'll never forget, like, the reason I even played this, I was watching John, that's Eye Patch Wolf, was doing his Let's Play series. And I just tuned in on one of those runs. And he had done something on a previous run because each run affects the next run, by the way. It's one of those
Hmm.
games. He had this like his princess was like this buff devil princess, and if you know anything about John, like that's hitting all of his fucking weak spots. And so John is just sitting there for like 3 minutes before he finally gets up and says, "Chad, I gotta go get a glass of water. I'll be back." and just pretending like he's not impacted at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
But
Gotta go have a quick cool down.
yeah, because he just says like, "Oh no." Yeah, but there's so basically there's like over 100, I think, variations of this princess
Hmm.
that you can run into based on past actions with each loop slash run. It's one of those games again. Not giving
Hmm.
anything away. That's literally. There's not really a way to talk about the game beyond the fact that it's a loop game without getting mega spoilery. So I won't because I really feel like everybody should play that game blind as fuck.
Hmm.
I wish I
Hmm.
had played it
Hmm.
more blind than what I saw with John, but sometimes
Yeah.
Patch Wolf is right. Sometimes you, in order to appreciate something, sometimes somebody who you trust has to peel back some of its layers to even get you on board.
Yeah.
I feel
It depends. Yeah. Like some games, it takes a long time for you to find it. If and like I don't know. It can be difficult to tell, right? Because like so, for instance, there's a game I really enjoy called Sunless Sea, and
this.
it is primarily there's a lot of reading in it, basically. You know, it is a role playing game and it is text based. Like you're not going to run into any voice acting or anything like that. And really, the main reward of the game. I mean, there's upgrades. You can get a bigger ship. You know, there's stuff you can do,
Right,
but
right.
all of it is really in service of unlocking stories, being able to see these incredible places and things and events and people, like and creatures and like all sorts of strange like phenomenon, like it's all in service of unlocking and finding those things. And so I feel like to watch someone else do it first with a game like that, where the reward is so intangible, it's so
Hmm.
like it's the writing, really, that's the reward. So to
Yes,
watch it and to absorb it that way first would, it would ruin it,
that's a
whereas
great
there are some
comparison. Yeah.
games, yeah, where there are some games where you really, that you might need guidance, you might miss out on certain things and things like that if it weren't for other people's you know like guidance. Whereas with Sunless Sea, like you're kind of designed to miss out on quite a bit. Actually, the game is presented in a very obtuse way, like the world is thrust upon you and you have to react to it. Not every
Hmm.
game is that way.
No, and then there's some games that are so intangible. Look at like say like fucking Dark Souls and the way they do side quests. Like
Right.
there's no fucking way that your average person is going to see even a tenth of them without some kind
Yeah,
of
so
a guide.
that's why you got your great people, like your Vatividia, your Epic Name Bro, the people that are there to talk about
God,
those
I
sort of
I
connections to
miss
make them.
Epic Name Bro so much.
That whole situation just makes me sad. I don't know any more about it, and honestly, I don't really want to know more about it
I was gonna
because
say
it
I can
just
give you the
sucks.
deets if you want, but not
No,
here.
I'm cool.
I don't want to
I'm
air.
cool.
Marcus
No,
is.
not at all.
I was gonna say Marcus is one of like the OG YouTubers that really got me into this thing, and I would rather
Yeah,
not air his. I would rather not air his stuff on one of my streams. I feel like that would be icky. But if you ever want to know what happened, really happened with
yeah, we could
Marcus,
talk about it
hit me up in
sometime.
private. Yeah,
We could talk about it sometime, but yeah, it's unfortunate.
it was nasty and
And
it was messy and it was sad. That's a good way to put
But yeah, but people like that do a lot of great work,
it.
and there are some games that serves really well, I think.
Yes.
And I feel like it's hard to tell what type of game it is when you're getting into it. Whether it's a game that would be better served to get a little bit of a hand or not.
Well, I'll give you a great example of a game I think that was serviced by content creators very well, and that was Fear and Hunger. I think
Okay.
Fear and Hunger is a game that would I think most people would be utterly lost on them without
Hmm.
content creators at least pointing out what that game actually is.
Now, see, now here's my follow up because you've activated my trap card,
Okay.
which is now there now that we can agree that there are games that lend themselves to content creation more
Yes.
effectively, I want to talk about how games like Sunless Sea, which I love and cherish very much, and I found to be a delicious experience
It's
that
very good.
just keeps giving me more and more and more. It just keeps giving me more, and it's yeah, it fills my brain with so many wonderful ideas. It's like reading an interactive book.
Well,
It's very cool.
and famously, it's one of those games that I've thought about streaming when I play because every once in a while I'll do a run of Sunless Sea, and I never
Hmm.
do, and it's exactly for that reason. I feel like
And
I would
that's
be
my thing.
depriving
Is that
somebody. Somebody needs to find that
yes,
and play that on their own.
but it also deprives the game of all of that hype cycle, of
It
all of that.
does.
Yeah, like you either watch it and get it right then and there at the hands of the player,
Yeah,
or you go and play it blind. And I played Sunless Sea on two things: written reviews and photographs, pictures of certain places and scenes that were themselves spoilers. But
yeah.
the game does such a great job of presenting itself that like visually you can see a location that is striking and incredible and know very little about it and still have it be a mystery that unfolds itself and almost
Okay.
like an exciting thing when like, oh yeah, finally I got to see, I found the thing I saw that made me excited to play the game,
I'll tell you what we'll do,
you know.
V. I will link the games we're talking about, the indie games we're talking about, because I'm gonna mention a few too. We will link them in the actual video description in the after video. So come back to the video afterwards, and all of the links to these games, the Steam links, will be there if you guys want to check them out. Not sponsored, but I just want to. I think that might be a good in between for how content creators could do this because I'm not playing the game directly and spoiling and peeling back its layers and secrets, but at the same time we are talking about it in a spoiler free way, and we are genuinely recommending you play the game, gamer to gamer.
Yeah. Yeah, I do think that like games like this they really need these free reviews because like they're not going to get the coverage. They're just not going to get it because you can't. Like you either watch it and ruin it or you don't watch it and probably don't hear about it.
I just got an idea for something, V, and you might be perfect for this. If and so this is going to be a spontaneous ask. If you don't have the time, I totally get it. You know what we should do is we should do a show where, and we kind of already have our first one. If you want to do this, where you throw a piece of media that you recommend to me, and I throw a piece of media that I recommend to you, and then we just talk about it.
Yeah, that would be fun. Sure.
I think that would be a because I'm sure there's some great stuff that we and here's the reason I say that. There's all kinds of shit we throw at each other, and because of that currency, that absolute tyrant of a currency, time, we never get to it. I've been
Hmm.
I've been needing to get to fucking 6 billion kill 6 billion demons
Oh,
for a
buddy.
half a fucking year now.
Listen, like there are like we have a lot of like to the audience, this guy and I have quite a few of like philosophical, cybernetic conversations. We have a lot of
A
complex conversations,
lot.
and
It
I'm just
bleeds it
saying right
bleeds into this
now,
show, guys.
there's
Yeah.
there's narrative language I require you to read Kill 6 Billion Demons to understand that I wish to
Okay.
communicate to you with. Like,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just such a
Like
great
for example,
story.
the
It's
the
it's
blade
so
of
well
one,
written.
which you have
Yeah,
explained
like
to
the
me.
Blade of One.
The
Yeah,
blade of
I
one.
won't shut up about it. Yeah, it's fantastic.
And yeah, by the way, the you can blame her for a lot of the more esoteric shit that bleeds into this show because I also won't shut the fuck up about a lot of these concepts because once you start rabbit hole in some of these concepts, it's inherently fascinating to me because this is not just an explanation for why your favorite hobby might be in the toilet or why we can't access the good parts of that hobby. It's an exploration of the human condition and psyche as well. And that will always be fascinating to me.
That's right.
It's
And
one of
then and
it's
then
one of
there's
my genuine and true hobbies is people.
and interestingly enough, as a video gamer, and I do love to play video games.
Right.
I don't call myself a gamer because I feel like that term is charged. Um,
It sure is
it's
now.
really charged in this. It's really charged in this environment. Yeah. So I call myself a video gamer or a person who plays video games because that's what That's actually like for me. The identity is a thing that I am doing. I am playing video games, and so I am a video gamer. Like I, the identity is not what I think I am. It is what I do. I think
Mhm.
that's kind of the distinction between the people who are spending a lot of time online complaining about video games and very unimportant things rather than actually just, putting 500 plus hours into a Fallout game. Putting 120 hours into Vampire Survivors, which I just picked up like a couple months ago
It's like the
because
new
that
Binding
game
of
is a
Isaac, it sounds like.
it's a dopamine machine. I turn it on and all of the bad things in my brain go away and the
Yeah.
numbers go up and all of the pretty colors happen and all the bad guys go away and I get all the things and it's just a big loop that just keeps going and building and it rules. It fucking rules and there's big spinny wonderful lights and it's great. Yeah. But I'm playing games. I'm spending dozens and
Well,
hundreds of hours
and
playing
here's the
games.
consequence of spending all that time playing games. And I've been in a game playing mode too. Not a game talking about, not a game writing about. I've genuinely too, chat, been in a game playing mode for fucking once in my life. And here's the magic of that. We've just had we're an hour and 20 in. Most of that has been talking about playing video games. Isn't that something? Now that's an encouraging thought to me. Um, personally, because it tells me that I still am a gamer, quote unquote. Not a
Video
gamer
gamer.
TM, but I do like this hobby. I do like playing games and not just talking about games.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And like that's another thing is like there that
and so
tyrant
yeah,
time, like you said
so my
yourself,
my
there are
honestly,
games.
you might try it sometime. I'm not talking, and this is only if it doesn't apply, let it fly. But to those people who find themselves spending more than let's say an hour, which is a lot of time in a 24-hour day, if you find yourself like me sometimes spending more than 1 hour talking about, writing about, or arguing about video games, try to also say, okay, the next hour I'm going to spend playing video games. That's what's been
Or
helping me.
don't forget, and this is what I really want to hammer down on, and maybe this is me being a nasty bitch, but like it's not just writing and like arguing and like talking about, it's watching and listening and reading. It's consuming. It's oh, this guy's such an asshole. Oh, this guy dunked on him. That's such a funny joke. What a jerk. He's so funny. And we're all
Yeah,
just having the same conversation.
yeah,
We're all
yeah.
participating in the same conversation and it's not getting us anywhere. Like
It's
we're
true.
all still talking about what they decided we should talk about instead of the
Hey, what are we
games we're
playing?
playing
Yes. Instead of what are we playing? Now, part of that, like, I'll give you, like, I got a
or
lot of
what's
homies that,
wrong with our games now or what's wrong what's actually wrong with the games like
right.
as opposed to what they decided is wrong with them.
Part of it is I've got a lot of good homies out there that make bangerang content. And so I just like watching their videos. But yeah, when we're watching that content, part of it is there's a lot of games that's a lot of game time we're not playing. It's very true. Same thing with when we're thinking about arguing with games on Twitter, arguing about games.
Well, it's one thing if you're watching content that's about the game, right? Like that's helping you understand the game better, like we talked about before, like doing that like kind of guidance that we discussed before,
Right,
or
right.
showing you a game you maybe hadn't heard of before, or telling you something about it. Like that's all useful information, or like even something as innocuous or as banal as like top 10 guns in Fallout, New Vegas, or whatever the fuck you want to
Kind of
watch.
fun.
Like
Yeah,
that's fine. I
I
don't
literally
have a
just
problem with that.
backgrounded a 7 hour Fallout New Vegas
Yeah.
retrospective.
Yeah, like lore video or whatever. Yeah, like I don't have a problem with it. That's all great. Whatever. You're probably doing that in the background of your other things that you're doing.
Yes,
That's
yes,
not,
including playing
you're
games.
honestly, you're probably playing games while
Yes,
you're doing that.
yes,
Yeah, that's
exactly,
okay. Like that's
exactly.
not the kind of active engagement I'm talking about. I'm
Okay.
talking about scrolling. I'm talking about scrolling on your phone, scrolling on your computer, checking your mentions,
Yes.
sending posts and tweets and replies, watching reply guy videos, uh, getting mad about this thing or that thing, so like finding out we found out some new thing about this guy, he got doxxed or whatever. I don't care.
At the
Why are
end
we
of it,
talking about this?
at the end of everything, when we're and again, I'm going to make this kind of clownish because there's probably things besides your backlog you'll be thinking about in this moment too. To be fair, but at the end of everything, when you're laying there and you look over at that unfulfilled backlog that now will forever be unfulfilled, the last thing you're going to think of on that deathbed is that I wish I was arguing with strangers on Twitter instead of playing those games.
Yeah. It's silly. All that time is wasted, and you can't look me dead in the face and tell me that you'd rather be doing that than playing games. You can't look me dead in the face and say you'd rather be telling people
So,
online who are mad about how fat the face of a character is that they're wrong, and you'd rather be doing that than actually playing the fucking games. Like, do they really need to be told they're wrong? Is it really that important?
and that
Or
now we're going to get into the real meat of things because I do this a lot. You know, I do this a lot.
yeah, I'm
And
calling you out to some extent, to be
yes,
honest,
why do I do that? Because I acknowledge that you're correct. I would rather be playing
because it's
video
fun.
games or doing. I don't find it fun when I'm in the middle of it, though. I don't. I'm not saying you're wrong because I actually think there is some real worth to what you just said. Actually, but why does it not feel like fun when it's ongoing? Is this some kind of a psychological trickery because of the dopamine machine I'm using? I mean, because it doesn't feel like fun; it feels like frustration.
I
But then
mean,
I get that reply. I get
mhm,
that little blue one in
mhm.
Twitter that shows me somebody just replied to me.
Yeah, these are
And
engagement
then
machines, basically,
yes,
and
yes.
whether or not you know it, like, yeah, it is frustrating you, but you're also getting, yeah, you are getting that same like gotcha kind of like, yeah, hunt and return kind of. It is similar actually to the sort of like, let's use Fallout 4 as an example. Like Fallout 4 has a gameplay loop. All the games have a gameplay loop. You go out, you kill a bunch of guys, you loot their bodies, you come home, you break down the stuff into loot, you upgrade your stuff, you go back out, you kill better guys,
Very
and you
satisfying
loot
in my opinion.
basically. Yeah, it's a really satisfying fucking loop. These these social media organizations, look at them like a game. They have a loop. They absolutely
Okay, that's a
do.
good way to look at it actually.
Yeah, and decide if that's what you want to actually be doing. Especially especially if you find yourself arguing about something so stupid as all these pathetic things have been lately about like is this woman objectified enough? How many extra centimeters of flesh need to be shown before we're no longer being censored? Like, these are incredibly pathetic things for the entire like community to be discussing, whether we're calling them pathetic or not. Like, if you're spending all day long talking about how pathetic these people are, they fucking own you,
So I'm gonna give
and
you
it's
so I'm gonna give you a
you
devil's
got to stop
advocate.
that.
Well, I'm gonna give you a devil's advocate argument for why we have to do it. Okay.
Okay,
So
sure.
imagine now that you're that expanded audience and you've just come into the space. Okay. Now imagine for a moment that your first entry into the space, and I can tell you from experience, I talk to normies. Most of the people at my workplace don't play video games. They're not gamers. And
Uh
I
huh.
have theoretically just floated some of these recent controversies their way. And I am looked at with confusion and bafflement and disgust and horror
Yeah, absolutely.
that
Yeah,
anybody would have these opinions,
right.
that
Absolutely.
anybody would make this big of a
Mhm.
deal about these things. And
You're
I
right.
floated about the last few weeks. I've just done that to the people I know that
Uh
don't
huh.
play games. Now imagine that
Yeah.
person plays a Vampire Survivors or a Minecraft or a Wii
Uh huh.
Sports, and they come into the space, and their first real dipping of their toes into that space is no black samurais. She's fat. There's not enough pelvic flesh here.
Uh huh.
Um, Imagine that's their first experience. What is now my argument with for you is that going to help our hobby grow or is that going to harm our hobby grow? And wouldn't it be nice if they could see a little pushback to this stuff?
My response to that is your pushback feeds the engine that will make them see that in the first place.
Okay,
You brought it up to these people in the first place when what you could have done instead is just been a better example and talked to them about video games and showed them games they've never heard of. And instead of being like, "Hey, did you know gamers are fucking weird?" Like, you
okay,
know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, we don't have to see this crowd to them. We don't have to have this conversation. And if yeah, if somebody comes online and finds people pushing back against them, they might be less upset about the situation than if they found no pushback. But they are much more likely to find it in the first place because of the pushback, because of the
Okay.
engagement
Because it's pushed it up.
feedback loops
It's
of
pushed it
these
in. Okay.
algorithms.
And
Yeah.
now it's
So the
now it's
more and
not
more we
just
feed
weirdos
into
on
it,
Twitter. Now it's front
yeah,
page on IGN and
yeah, the
GameSpot.
more and more we feed into it, the more and more it becomes a fucking problem and it becomes
Okay.
everybody's issue. When
Okay.
instead we could be having our own stories, our own conversations, leading our own conversations about things that we're interested in.
This is like an "Are we the baddies?" moment. Like
It's not,
it.
not necessarily, it's just like I see a lot of well-meaning people who do love to play video games wasting a lot of their time. And it's not and like
Fucking A, yeah.
that in and of itself is bad enough. That in and of itself is bad enough. I don't want to make a judgment about how much it's helping the other side because I don't think that's helpful. Because I think proving to those people that it's a waste of your time to have this conversation in the first place, you should play video games and talk about video games instead, is a
That
better
is kind
argument
of
than trying to blame people.
the best outreach we can do is to be playing and loving video games and then passionately talking to those people about those games.
Yep.
I agree with that.
That's the best
I
pushback we
think I
can provide.
I think I can agree
Is
with that.
listen, there's a lot of weird shit that's happening in the community right now, but what's really cool is this. Is this game I like right
Check
now.
out
It's
Vampire
hey,
Survivors.
it's
Check
yeah,
out
check out Signalis. Signalis is really
Oh
fucking cool. If you
my
miss old Resident
god!
Evil, if you love Resident Evil and Dead Space and you love indie games
You
and you
have to
love
play it.
weird foreign language German like numbers stations, space lesbians, robots, like it's
It's all
excellent.
there.
It's fucking excellent. Yeah,
It's all
it's
there,
really
homies.
great. Creepy inventory management, like
Oh, the monster!
infected
You're
bad
genuinely
guys. Yeah.
scared. You're genuinely
Yeah,
scared to
it's
step out
great. It's really
of
great.
that
Yeah,
safely.
Signalis. Check it out.
Yeah,
Really great game.
Signalis. I'm going to link that one too. So we'll link Signalis, we'll link Vampire Survivors, and we will link Sunless Sea. So far, we're
Yeah,
definitely going to link
yeah,
all three of
definitely
those.
Sunless Sea for sure. Yeah,
Guys, got to check them out. They're very good. Again, not a sponsorship, just genuine passion saying, hey, check these out. And these are all indie studios. I think Vampire Survivors is big enough at this point, but we're still going to fucking help it out because fuck it, it's great.
yeah, and it's also it's just insanely cheap. Like the amount of money I spent on this and the amount of time I've spent into it is a ridiculous like value proposition. It truly is ridiculous because I could see myself spending upwards of 1,000 hours in this game, like just estimating, looking
100%.
at
No,
like my progress.
I played a little bit of it, and I literally am like, nope, no, it's one of two games I've done that for recently. Because I'm like, no, you're not fucking taking my fucking soul. Nope, But
Well,
it's
like so, I basically allow myself one run of Vampire Survivors a day. Is the way I've been managing it.
you have to
So
do that.
like
Terrifies me. That you have to do that
yeah,
terrifies the shit out of me.
yeah, because I want to play other games. It's important to me. Right, but vampires, so it's a dopamine machine. Like it's the only reason I think it's ethical at all is because there's absolutely no kind of microtransactions or anything like that.
It
But it
isn't,
is absolutely a spinning wheels and lights number generator. It does all those things to your brain that those gambling machines do. It just does it in a friendly way.
and
So
it
I
doesn't
really
charge you
appreciate
for
it.
all the extras. And some people
Yeah.
will love this, some people will hate this. I know this person is polarizing, but Jim Stephanie Sterling does some of the writing on the monsters bios, and I don't care if I'm a future friend of the show and I know I'm fanboying right now, and I don't give a fuck. I think their writing is good. So
Oh yeah. No, it's great.
I also I add that as a plus, but each person will make their own decision on that based on I like their content. So I
Yeah.
that's a plus to me, big plus to me.
But if you like, like Castlevania reminiscent reverse bullet hell games, like also like incredibly accessible and like in such a stealth way that you wouldn't even recognize like, as being that way until being told that that's what it was. Be
You
like,
were
"Oh yeah,
telling
yeah,
me about some
literally
of these weapons you get.
yeah, oh yeah. They're so
Tell
so
about
creative and
one
awesome. Yeah.
where the orbs like
Has like
fly out as you like. behind you or whatever direction you fling the. Wow.
Yeah, and you can twist everything up in all kinds of cool ways. Yeah, it's a great game. It's fantastic.
Vampire Survivors is, yeah, it's one of those. And then I'll tell you another one that recently literally scared me away from it. That's Stardew Valley.
Oh
And
yeah, no, that's a excellent game.
Stardew Valley. There's a video called "Why Stardew Valley's Creator Hated His Game" that everybody should check out. By the way,
Huh?
um,
You know he's making a new game, right?
it's something kind of chocolate factory game or
The
something.
Haunted Chocolatier.
The
Yeah,
Haunted Chocolatier.
it's gonna be
Yes,
legendary. It's gonna be legendary.
I'm very excited. But like, first of all, kudos to the guy's wife. One hell of a wife. She even watches Star Trek. So that
Hmm.
is the perfect kind of support for a creative in my book. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me give you some examples of what I'm talking about here. He made his game not because of vanity or riches, but because he found the modern incarnation of the farm sim game to be unsatisfying. Okay, guys.
Uh huh.
He embraced pixel art. This is a guy who would relax by playing old Final Fantasy games and 4X games like Civilization. Sometimes even took days off to do this. He was a workaholic. He felt like a loser because when someone asks what hobbies or what else do you do, he replies, "I'm making a video game." I've heard lots of game developers tell me that while you're doing it, before it actually gets out, and then you get all the plus of actually putting out a product, that while you're working on this, a lot of game developers feel somehow lesser for this, which I hate. But just know it's all worthwhile because once your game gets out, you get to look at something that you crafted with your own hands, and it's out in the world, and it's an
Hmm.
amazing experience. Um, he would redo old work over and over and over again as his skills improved. This is all happening on Stardew Valley, guys. Constantly thinking his
And
work is shit and not showing it to people.
mhm.
Feels like he's wasting his life because he's just not happy with it. Very skilled in both STEM side and artistic side. So he had both the STEM side and the artistic side. And please note, now that you have things like generative AI, you have things like being able to contract out musicians and programmers, you don't necessarily have to have both sides of the equation. So that helped him. But if you want to make a video game, the current advancements, Blender, for example, Blender has a plugin for just about everything. You can make games on Blender. But one of the major reasons for, I digress, the major reason for Stardew Valley's success um, is literally the support structure he had while he was doing it. Nobody makes a game alone, guys. His date
Mhm.
nights were playing Harvest Moon on Super Nintendo with his wife. That's how they bonded.
Uh huh.
This video is so good. I definitely I definitely encourage people to watch it. It's a really good video that kind of shows what these people go through. And I have to laugh at Stardew Valley's high sales hope for the game. Do you know what this guy thought the sales ceiling for his game would be, V?
Oh, I'm sure it's nothing like what he actually achieved. Like this is one of those big sleepers like
Yep,
Minecraft that
10,000
just
to
blew the world away.
20,000 units at $15.
Yeah, that's pretty hysterical to be honest.
Oh, that's hilarious. But
Yeah.
yeah, but anyway, to give you a little bit more on Stardew Valley, the game is crafted ridiculously well. It also succeeded. It's a blue ocean game. There was literally no competition for the farming game, and don't give me that shit about Harvest Moon. Harvest Moon was not fucking competition for anything at that point. Completely
Yeah, it
lost its
hadn't been
fucking way.
present. It hadn't been present on the market. It had so many fucking flaws. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's not competition. It's
Um.
nothing like it. And Stardew Valley it's bigger than that game in so many ways. It's you can't even imagine. Like things that like I don't know. Yeah, it just it has like whole other games attached to it in addition to being Harvest Moon.
One
Like it
hundred
is a
percent.
much larger game. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Literally, the fact that he stuck to his instincts. Basically, Stardew Valley feels like an alternative timeline of how a major successor to Harvest Moon would be had it taken a different trajectory. That's literally, and because of that, that's how it was able to get that expanded market. Women from all ages came into that game. That's one of the reasons I harp on this so much, and people accuse me of all kinds of bullshit. But the actual reason I harp on this is that when you make a game that women also want to play, it doubles your market potential.
Uh-huh.
Pac-Man
Uh-huh.
got big because it was designed to be appealing to women as well as men. And a lot of
That's right.
games just don't do that. There are so many games in the space that just ignore women. You're ignoring half the potential customer base. And
Mhm.
Stardew Valley
Mhm.
said, no, fuck that. I want everybody's money. And they made a damn
That's
good
right.
game doing it.
Mhm. That's right. Yeah. And like there's an enormous amount and like you talk about like, like the modding community with like Morrowind and stuff like that. Stardew
Yes,
Valley has an incredible modding
it
community.
does.
Like
It
and I've seen like my own friends like on their own time like paint like hand changing like the sprites of like models in the game for themselves. Like and it's easy to do. He shares all of it with you. You can do it all. He's not holding any of it back at all. He shows you everything he's working with.
I and that's the thing. At the end of the day, like, because again, I work around business. I want gaming businesses to do well. I want them to do well because if they're doing well, theoretically, we're eating good. And I just see two things that are threats. That number one is they're not trying to expand the market anymore.
No.
Number two is they they're not. Oh, I don't know. I think AAA gaming is lost. I think that's why we really need to focus on the indie games. I
Yeah,
think the
I
real
agree. Like
revolution is in indie. I really do.
yeah, we still have so many bangers that just came out within the past couple months. Like
It's
the
almost
list is actually ridiculous.
it's almost the opposite problem. I'm going to be having a game dev on at some point. We're trying to make it work. It's and I hope I'm not. If you're listening, I hope I'm not preemptively shouting this out. But we both committed to doing it, so I feel like it's fair. They made Romance Vania, and it's an indie game.
Uh-huh.
And one of the questions I have for him when he comes on, Bill Gardner, is I want to know if he feels like indie games have the opposite problem as AAA games. AAA games are in a drought right now. Oh, we don't get that many of them, and when they do come out, they're half baked and they're full of just the most
Uh-huh.
abusive
Uh-huh.
fucking practices known to man. But in the indie titles, like there are so many goddamn indie titles coming out that are all bangers. By the way, they're quality.
Right.
There's not
Hmm.
enough. I mean, there's not enough time in 5 lifetimes to play every fucking banger, high quality,
Exactly.
8.5 or
Yeah.
higher out of 10 indie game that's out there.
Hmm.
It's coming
Hmm.
to its own. And I kind of feel like in some ways this makes indies have the opposite problem, especially when you compound the way that Steam and the Nintendo store and the way that their storefronts are really hostile to indie makers, I feel like.
Well, that's part of it. Part of it is that way, right? Because they definitely get the bulk of their money like directly from these big clients, like these big,
Right.
like AAA clients who probably have deeper relationships than we know, frankly, like as far as that stuff goes. Because like if they looked at it from a core money standpoint, they're going to see that there's going to be a growing percentage that the indies are going to get, and the indies will get commensurately more representation with like Steam's like attention to some extent, but it's not directly proportional because they're not going to each individually have agents and clients and effectively lobbyists. I imagine. I'm sure they have relationships. Like I mean, I literally did that. Like there was a relationship worker for Games Workshop when I worked at a comic book shop that I
Okay.
directly emailed. Like that, this was a person who was the face of the company that I spoke with. Like there are a lot of people that act that way, and so like
Right.
I think, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, 100%. It just feels like I feel like we could do a better job on those storefronts of supporting indie titles because you compound the fact that it's hard to get seen with the fact that there are so many coming out, and
Yeah,
it
and
almost
and
it
then the
almost
AAAs are
creates
still trying to take up all the
yeah.
space on the front page with their money and their
It's really putting.
direct relationship.
I feel like for as good a quality as we're getting, I feel like there's not enough money there to support it, and so I actually fear that what this will eventually result in is an indie drought. Because right now the indie scene is such a red ocean because of these practices. There is so
Uh-huh.
much fucking blood in the water because there's just no advertising support for these games that
Yeah.
you can't even find the gold if you want to. Or it's not even that you can't find the gold, it's there. There's so much gold you can't find the shiniest galleon.
Well, that's ultimately what the actual purpose for me as of late of any actual like video games journalism has
Sure.
been an article showing me a title I haven't heard of before. Like that's literally all I use it for. I don't even care about what they think about it at all. Like I'm not interested in that.
Maybe
I'll
that's
go
what
read about what other people who play video games say about that game. But I
you have
will just
inspired me
yeah.
just now. I think what I'm
Uh-huh.
going to do is I'm going to start focusing on playing the indie titles in my physical backlog, and
hmm
maybe that can be the kick in the ass I need to start making videos again.
I mean that yeah, if you feel like you're putting a spotlight on games that need it because they're
Yeah,
not getting supported otherwise. I mean, and especially if you're looking at titles like the ones before we were talking about where reviews that spoiler-free reviews are really important, you know.
yeah, because all mine are spoiler free, exactly, and so
Yeah,
that
because
kind of
other
helps.
indie games like indie games that are friendly to streaming get streamed. If they get streamed, they get popular. So the games that can't get streamed will have a harder time, like just straight up.
Yeah, no, I think there's some definite truth to that, and yeah, it would one help me put it back because here's the thing, like I'm finishing off my Batman review, and I like Batman. Everybody likes Batman. You know, Batman's cool, and the game's fun. And my ideas for Batman being kind of a failed panopticon are fun. But does Batman need any fucking help to sell games? I don't know. I don't think so. Not that
hmm
that's the point of my content. I'm not trying, but maybe if I could highlight some genuine indie titles that need it,
hmm
that might revive that passion a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if I guess I don't write video game reviews, but if I
Right?
were to write video game reviews, and like for instance, the games that I've brought up on this thing that
Yeah.
we've been talking about, I brought them up because I like them, because I'm passionate about them, because
Hmm.
I care about them, because I want people to know about them, not necessarily because like I think that the person or the company that made it needs support. That is important, but it's not at the forefront of my mind when I do write the reviews,
No, I want other
or
people to play it
when
so
I
that
think
they
of
can
those
talk
reviews,
about
rather.
it with
Yeah,
me and other
yeah.
people. Yeah.
When I would write the reviews, yeah,
Yeah, I want to
yeah.
talk
So
about
like,
it.
I don't blame you for writing, about a AAA title. Like I could gush about Baldur's Gate 3 all day. It's a fantastic game. Nobody needs that, by the way. Everybody's doing that.
Right, right. Yeah, I definitely think there's some truth to that. Because yeah, there's I don't know. Is there anything aside from some salty peeps, and you know who you are? I don't really think that anybody is giving Baldur's Gate too much shit. When the one thing you can lob at Baldur's Gate is, oh yeah, you clap some bare ass cheeks. Like I feel like the game is pretty much above critique at this point. Like
I mean, I feel like there were more substantial critiques of it that could be made. Like if I had to criticize Baldur's Gate, I would criticize it mechanically from the
yeah,
beginning.
it is. Yeah, it is. And I
But
can tell you
that's
this
a
from
cheap shot.
and to be fair, I think that's I don't know if necessarily know if it's a cheap shot because you don't know how many people, especially JRPG players. So I'm going to highlight JRPG players because that's who I talk to a lot. JRPG
hmm
players have a hard time with games like, for example, I've noticed that they have a hard time. They've wrote to me saying, "Hey, I wondered what the hubbub on Ultima 7 was." Now, V, that's on me. Why am I recommending Ultima 7 to gamers in 2024? But
It's just not a modern game.
it's not. It's very. But I've also recommended Baldur's Gate 3, and I've heard the same critique out of JRPG players, which is this game is labyrinth. I don't know how to
hmm
play this game. It is
hmm
infinitely complex, and you're right. It is infinitely complex, and it is hard, and you do have to think with your thinking thoughts. I know this is hard when you come from a series like Final Fantasy that gives you like 28 status ailments, and you don't need to use any of them to play and beat the game. I know this
See,
feeling.
I that's really funny because I was just about to say that actually JRPGs have a great deal of extraneous complexity that isn't important a lot of the times.
Which is how,
But
but
I
by the way,
guess
that's how they appear to not be complex at all. Yeah, if
uh
you use Final Fantasy, all of its status ailments, it can be complex, but the game never demands that you do that. It never demands you use
right.
the systems that it builds in. A vast majority of those games, even the good ones, even Final Fantasy VI, you can literally muscle through that game with your characters' damage spells, special arts, and just attack. You can muscle your way through the whole game.
Gotcha.
And you're not
See,
going to do
I
that in BG3. You're not going to do it.
see. I played. I've been playing D&D for a very long time, like
Uh-huh.
since I was like probably 16, and Baldur's Gate 3 is a perfect simulacrum of D&D. Like it
Yeah.
perfectly represents all like exactly the same stats, spells, abilities, attributes, all of it. It's
One
perfectly
one would
represented. So
argue that at
for
this
me, that
point,
complexity was non-existent. I was
sure.
absolutely ready to pick it right up and play.
Well, and one could argue that if it's that good, is it still simulacra?
Oh well, yeah, of course it is. It's still.
Okay.
I mean,
It's
yeah,
still it's
it
still
is.
not the real deal. Yeah, but I mean
Yeah,
it's fucking real close.
it's great. Yeah, it's excellent. But yeah, it's not the same thing in the same way that you can't produce a map that's perfectly, a representation because it would just be the same map.
Well, and that's
It
one of
would be
the
the same
things. Like,
size.
and I like trails, but I've had some problems. We've talked a little bit about some of my problems with trails as well. And one of those problems for me is twofold. Number one, poor Tio gets in some real uncomfortable situations in that game. I feel like, and like this girl's like 14, man. Like, I hate that. Hate that. Hate it.
It's
Thanks.
that's a it's an unfortunately common trope
It
in
is
a lot of games like that.
number two, and this is more of a mechanical complaint. The mechanical complaint on it is that any game like this game has a feature where you can put fast forward and you can do the combat in fast forward. Any game mode where you can fast forward the combat and make the combat go at 2x speed or 4x speed, if you can do that, you probably need to think a little harder about your combat mechanics.
Outside of like a 4X game. Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. I think that there's a lot of time wasting that's built into a lot of games like that. Partially due to the crude like measurement that is, by the way, was on full display recently with the Senua thing where they're like the game's 5 hours long. It's like, I mean, yeah, it's 5 hours long. Who knows if it's good enough? I don't know. But like, I will point out that just saying that a game is worth money based on how many hours you spent on it is a crude measurement and should
It's one
at
I don't
best,
like that.
yeah, like it's not absolute in any way,
You
like,
can
and
beat a
shouldn't be
majority of
presented.
you can beat a majority of NES games in well under 5 hours. You can beat
Yeah, it
Mario.
shouldn't be presented as a self-evident own, like, at
Yeah,
all,
Mario 3, Mario Brothers 3. If you're skilled at it, is about a 5 hour game. If you play every fucking level, it's about 5 to 4 hours, and
Right.
it's an infinitely replayable masterpiece of a game that you will play again and again and again and
Uh-huh.
again.
Uh-huh.
You can't. So that would be like saying Mario 3 is 5 hours long. So the question becomes, if a game is 5 hours, that's fine. Am I going to want to replay that game numerous times?
Mhm. Mhm.
Keep in mind also that 5 hours, like if you take a date to a movie, to a bad movie, let's say, you're going to pay $50 for that bad movie, and it's over in an hour and a half.
Yeah, I mean, well, we had to go see Furiosa the other night, and it
Well, that's a
was,
good movie, but
we live in the Midwest, and it was like $45.
yeah,
So,
for two.
like, yeah.
So
Mhm.
I would say that if you're getting 5 hours for $50, I would say you're now you felt like you got your money's worth out of Furiosa for that $45, right?
Oh, well, Furiosa was great.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
So again,
absolutely.
if the 5 hour game is great and it provides an absolutely knockdown, drag out, blows your fucking mind narrative, I would say you got your money's worth. I would say, what are you bitching about? But the question becomes, is that what it is? Or is it lesser than the first game in just about every way, save graphics? And that's what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
That's the problem. I think that's the problem people have with it. Check the super chats real quick. The super chats. Brick Barnes says you said it was flipping the switch, all lowercase, any spaces or numbers. No spaces, no numbers. So it's flipping. It's FLIPPING. I think I spelled that right. Yeah, flip. Yeah, let me just look. I'm no spelling bee champion. Let's see. Yeah, it's two piece ing. The THE switch SWITCH. No spaces, all lowercase, no numbers. Yep. Um, Then Mike Clark says I have a far better experience with Twitter discussing retro games, especially posting short clips or pictures from the PC Engine slash TurboGrafx 16. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, you're not gonna have anybody in the TurboGrafx community calling saying that Maria has eaten too many cheeseburgers. I would find that a very hard to believe scenario. And that's something that really only plagues the current games. And I'll tell you why that is, Mike. It's because the current games are where all the eyeballs are right now. And so everybody's got to make a big fucking spectacle of their pet issue. Utilize again, it's not they're not talking about the games, not really. They're really elevating one of their pet issues and attaching it, looking for the game they can attach that pet issue to. That's what's actually happening there. Hard to do with a retro game. It's very hard to do. So I would agree that when I discuss retro games, outside of Zelda and 3D Mario and the other landmines I deliberately step on, I would say that you have a better experience in that regard too. I definitely do. V, what do you think?
I mean, I think what you said about like the way that they're looking to insert their pet idea into new things is pretty much spot on. Like
Yeah,
the it's just so petty. You know, the stuff they're picking is just so petty when there's so many other like more pressing issues to discuss.
literally on the
Like,
games they're talking about.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's just really outright obvious that they don't actually care.
yeah. It's
And
just like
they'll make all kinds of arguments about how like, I'm being reductive or how I'm being like in bad faith and not representing them and straw manning them or whatever. But like fundamentally it they are making mountains out of molehills and molehills out of mountains. That's their whole thing. Like
cause
the
it. Yeah,
things that
reverse cause and effect.
yeah, like they're obsessed with these like cultural signifiers that they could. I mean, we can understand as symptoms. Like I think we can all admit that like these companies are engaging in this baiting process, like
Deliberately,
that I discussed earlier. Yeah,
deliberately.
the same thing that I said before. Because the people who protect it also engage in producing like buzz and conversation
Well,
about
but
these
here's
these products.
what I'll say to that. I hate the fact I don't disagree that companies are deliberately baiting these excitable people. I think that's happening. But what does that say about the culture and the society that you can put a girl with a rounder face than she had in the last game, and that makes these people that mad? What does it say about our society that number one, people are that emotionally wrapped up in this shit? And number two, what does that say about the fact that we are so predictable that they can play us like a fiddle like this?
That's the thing, like, all these guys, like, are like, "Oh, well, I'm just a free thinker, like, I'm interested in free speech, like, I want to have space for people to have, like, debate and, like, to have different ideas, like,
Debate
clash with
what?
one another and stuff like that." Yeah, but, like,
Debate what?
it's not really what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, it's the topics that they're choosing are frivolous, and they are really very much they feel like they're designed to waste our time. Like, and just try and draw attention to themselves. And again, to target the kind of people that they want targeted.
Sorry, Mike Clark. This made me laugh. I need Mario nose hair. You know that Italians have that. Yeah, that's the kind of shit
For
they would
sure.
do. That's exactly the kind of bullshit they would do. That right there. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like Maria's pixel looks a little fat in this game. So yeah, get it together. Get it together, Konami from 30 years ago.
Yeah. I just like I'm reminded of like they've just done this over and over again. Like with so many different games and movies and it's just such old hat at this point. And what really sucks about it is that like there are a lot of good meaning people who also produce a lot of content just responding to it and
Yeah.
therefore it builds on it instead of coming up with our own things to talk about.
And you're right. We never
Focus.
get it. Nobody ever gets anywhere either side. Like we just don't.
We have a blessedly small amount of time on this planet, and it just we are so much better served not spending
Not
any of it
engaged.
with these absolute losers. Every minute we spend engaged with them, we're losing to them. We're losing time to them, and it
What is it?
sucks.
What is it I say when I'm particularly irritated by something? Unfuckable losers. Is that what I say?
Yeah, they for sure are. Like
Unfuckable losers.
the stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry. Like yeah, like just having those opinions and those conversations that they're having exposed to the people in their public life
It will make you
would
unfuckable.
like explain. Yeah, it would explain why they don't get anywhere. Like why they don't have any like ability to build intimacy with anyone.
Yeah, sad, real sad.
Because like I think a lot of it comes from like a place of like self-disgust and also helplessness. Like I think the fact that it is targeted at like such innocuous and silly things rather than the important things comes from a place of helplessness. If I were less charitable, I would call it cowardice, but let's be a little bit nice and call it helplessness. um I think that like looking down the barrel of things like the development in microtransactions, the enshittification of AAA video games,
Yeah.
the way they've cut them up into pieces and sold them back to us as $180 three-part packages over about 9 months, that often don't even come to fruition and are abandoned after 18 months anyway. You get less than a year and a half with a fully developed game if you're lucky. All and there's all these there's the always on identification and the extra launchers and the invasive the invasive identification stuff where they're getting all of your information and sharing it, and they're requiring you to have all these extra accounts and stores and pages and logins, and
Didn't they just
none
do
of
that?
that stuff is
Yeah,
easy to
and
deal with.
didn't they
The
just do that with
crunch
God of War
and
2?
the abuse in workplaces. Yeah, the crunch and the abuse in workplaces and the misrepresentations of the value that are in games. And all of that stuff is really hard to deal with. And it's much harder to deal with all that stuff than to look at a picture of a slightly fatter woman's face and get really angry about it and lead a crusade about something so petty and small. Something that you might get changed and you might not. It's really just kind of, it doesn't really matter. All it really does is generate buzz, and you might get the attention of the company. You might, but it's nothing compared to the actual shit they're up to. But those are molehills, right? Those are molehills. Don't worry about
It's
them.
easier to take a molehill than a mountain.
And that's the whole thing, dude. That's what it's all about. Like, it's helplessness, it's weakness, like it's cowardice, and that's why they target the weak. That's why they pick such petty shit. That's why we shouldn't engage with them. It's pathetic. Play your games, guys. Just play the actual video games. Play them. Talk about how you have fun with them. Don't let other people tell you what games to play and what not to play
Now, and that's the
unless you
thing.
are
Like,
looking for their input.
I want to be charitable. I do, but it's the world we build. That's the thing. Like, we supported all of those awful things that make us feel so helpless. We supported all of it, and that's why they do it, is because
Yeah,
it worked.
I yeah, I mean, I've been guilty in a couple of places. I think a really good place to start with this would be to admit our guilt, our complicity in the
Absolutely.
production of this world. So, like, I want to admit that, like, I'm addicted to Steam, that, like, I'm addicted to the ability to have access to a game. And I know that there is a possibility of long-term consequences where I'll lose access to those games, but I'll trade that. I have made that compromise, and I wish I didn't have to make that compromise, but it, the trade-off is just too good. In particular, given my track record with my ability to keep track of physical media, it's
That's a
just
big
not.
yeah. No, that's a big deal too.
Yeah,
Because that's the
and
thing.
so
You've got
like
to catalog all of it, and it's a lot of work to
right.
catalog all that shit.
I also initially tolerated loot boxes when it came to cosmetics. I played the original Overwatch. I played that game. I went along with the whole thing. I never spent my money into it or anything like that. Other than actually buying the game the first time I bought it.
Sure.
But you know, I ground at the game to get the points, to try to get the boxes, to roll to get the proper skins that you wanted. It's a thing you did.
Well,
But
and for my part in things, I don't even want to think about how much money I spent on Rock Band music.
oh right, yeah,
That was one of
true.
the worst, honestly, because
Hmm.
oh my god,
Yeah,
they probably took me for over a
hmm,
grand, over a
yeah,
grand easily. When I
yeah.
didn't have any money,
Hmm.
by the way, this was when Rock Band,
Oh yeah.
Rock Band Two, it, and that was when that was big shit on Turd Mountain, and I had a basic ass job back then. Like I
Hmm.
didn't have any fucking money, minimum wage job,
So that
or
money
near
meant a
minimum.
lot back then.
So yeah, I
Yeah,
probably
that
spent a
was that
grand
was
on this shit.
dear money. Yeah,
So I did it.
that was very dear. Yeah.
I did it too.
I mean,
We all
yeah,
did it.
yeah. I mean, I've spent probably more money than I should on MMOs throughout history, like on MMOs that didn't deserve the money. Like,
Sure.
because I think some MMOs do deserve it. The ones that get regular maintenance, the ones that have an overflowing abundance of things to do that you'll never run out of. You could
Well,
always
but
like
I don't want
find
you to
fun
feel so
time, and
bad.
it's not grindy and shitty.
I don't want you to feel so bad on MMOs though, because MMOs we both know serve another purpose. You're not there in the MMO to play the MMO as much as you're there to play the MMO with your friends.
Yeah, but you still are doing the live service thing, right? That's kind of where the live service, like games as a service, came from. It came from MMOs. So I do want to bear my soul on my gamer soul on this, basically, as far as like taking the guilt for like why we are where we are.
Yes.
Now, I have not gone much further than that. Those are really my grandest sins when it comes to that stuff because I just that's where my line is. I'm not going to go further than that. I'm not going to pay for skins. I'm not going to pay for dice rolls. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to play games that are based on those mentalities. I don't play free to play games for the most part. Like because they're not free.
Yeah,
They're simply
just
aren't.
remember, if something's free, you're the product, guys.
Yeah, well, and also the game itself isn't shitified. Like it's specifically in shitified. Like it has built-in limitations to make the game shitty, so that you'll spend money. And why would you play a game that does that?
Yeah,
Like there are games out there like MMOs that charge money to play them. Why would you not play the games that charge money to play them rather than the games that want you to spend money but don't charge them so that they make them shitty so that you have to pay
nasty,
the money?
nasty practice.
Why and like and you think they're gonna get all the shitty out with that one purchase?
No, no fucking way.
No, they left plenty of shitty in for you to keep spending. That's why I don't play games like that. The logic is not sound, and if you thought about it for very long, it would really start to make sense to you.
Right, 100%. Yeah, there's always a logic there. And again,
Mhm.
once again, kind of one of the things that is one of our common talking points. It's about control as much as it's about making money.
Of course,
It's about
control
control
is
over that product.
what's the money for if not control?
Exactly. Yes. Mike Clark says, I want to enjoy Western RPGs, but they are just not enjoyable to me. Best RPG I played this year is Tales of Arise, which I wish would come to Switch. I really wish it would, because I hear that's good stuff. I'm just an old school console gamer who simply enjoys Eastern developed games more. No hate for Bethesda. I just prefer Monolith, Namco, Atlas developed titles more. And there's nothing wrong with that, Mike. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I like both. I like both camps of RPGs. I like JRPGs. I also like Western RPGs. Um, I like both. But there's nothing wrong with favoring one over the other. Nothing wrong. As long as you know why you do, and most people can think about it, and they know why they do. A lot of people. So, for example, the Japanese craft when at the dawn of the JRPG, essentially what they did is they looked at a game like Ultima and they said, okay, Ultima is a computer RPG, a CRPG. So that complexity would not translate well to a console because a console can do some of that complexity. It's more complex than an arcade, but nowhere near the complexity of the PC. So, how can we take that genre and simplify it for a more simple integrated hardware and software interface? And the result was the JRPG. That's literally what it was designed to do. So, I'm not saying these are lesser games in any way. They do exactly what they're intended to do. Um, but the important thing is this understanding that that limitation is part of the design and understanding that there are people who play those games deliberately for the fact that it is a simplification. That's part of the appeal to those games. The console was a machine that had the tactile arcade roots of the arcade, and the also had the complexity roots of the computer. It was the best of both worlds, as The Legend of Zelda was famously described in the Nintendo Fun Club newsletter back in 1988. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
the whole point of the JRPG. Is it's the best of both worlds. It still has some of that tactile nature of the arcade cabinet, combined with the complexity and larger world building that you could get on a PC. But it doesn't do the tactile gameplay as well as the arcade. Doesn't do the integrated hardware software tactile at Twitch action nearly as well as the arcade, nor does it do the complexity as well as the PC. But that innovation in and of itself, that best of both worlds, is what the JRPG as a product of the console brings to the table. Hope that wasn't too
Hmm.
overly worded, but yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like as far as like the I don't have a ton of experience with JRPGs, I will admit. I have played Final Fantasy Tactics, so I do have you there, and you absolutely must play that. Good God.
I
Like,
know.
if you've played any Final Fantasy game, you probably should play
Well,
Tactics.
6 is going to be better. 6.
I mean, yeah, we were gonna both talk about six, of course, but like, yeah. So I will say that I don't have a ton to say about JRPGs in general, but what
Right.
I will say about like limitations in art and expression is that like so much is only possible. Like for people who might think that saying like JRPGs are limited is like a negative, or whatever. uh, There are a lot of ways in which art is not possible without limitations. Like if you
Correct.
don't have some sort of framework within which you build, like, it
Hmm.
becomes much more difficult to produce anything of meaning. Like
We only
if there
got
is no
Star Wars
ground,
because of the
yeah,
the the work they had to do to get around those technical limitations. That's how we got
yeah,
Star
sometimes
Wars.
the limitations, yeah, they produce the beauty that's all its own. So
Hmm.
yeah. Mhm.
Exactly. And again, you can literally put games like Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, and V would agree with that. Even not playing the genre that much, you can put those games up against just about anything.
Oh yeah, six is the one I'm familiar with, and yeah,
Yes.
it's incredible game,
You
incredible
haven't
game.
played
Final
Chrono.
Fantasy Tactics, incredible game.
You never played Chrono Trigger.
No, I think we've discussed
I'm
this.
sending you home with an SNES and Chrono Trigger.
Hey, yes, that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, we're gonna do that. We gotta fix that. And plus, the great thing about Chrono Trigger, it's brisk. It's not gonna be more than 25 hours tops.
That's cool.
That's one of the things I loved about the SNES era of RPGs. Um, Final Fantasy VI. I mean, and that's if you go maybe not completionist, but if you do everything you want to do in six, it's a 40-hour game tops. 40 hours
Hmm.
tops. That's as big as games get on the SNES, and that's part of the great appeal of it. Like Um, then I need. Oh, we already did that one. Flipping the Switch did Toonami Rewind last night. Did I watch it? I did. Brought back memories. I've got it taped. I'm gonna actually watch that tonight as I get in for bed. I'm gonna be watching that. But yeah, I got it. I got it taped. I got it TiVoed.
That is pretty cool.
That is such a cool thing. Yeah. So what Brooks referencing is they're starting to do on Friday nights. They're doing a Toonami Rewind, which is like a 4-hour block that's all the old shows. It's got like Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Rurouni Kenshin, um, Tenchi in Tokyo, Outlaw Star, Cowboy
Okay, I was about to
Bebop.
ask if we got Outlaw Star.
Outlaw
That's
Star.
dope.
Yeah,
I
me
gotta
and
watch.
Brandon talked about Outlaw Star on Thursday
Yeah,
because we were literally talking
what a
about this
great
Toonami.
show.
Oh, Outlaw Star
So
is
good.
great. Outlaw Star is so
That was one of
good.
my first like true like
Anime.
I'm addicted to anime
Yeah,
moments. Yeah, that was a
yeah.
big one.
That's peak anime. It really is. 100%. Um,
Yeah.
and then Mike Clark says, so long as you accept responsibility for the mess we're in and laugh at his ass off, I still have my rock band tunes on the PS3. Oh, they got you too, huh? Yeah, harmonics fucking got your soul too, huh?
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like I do think like a lot of people just like part of the like desire to like talk about anything but the actual problems of gaming is like not wanting to admit like the ways in which we've participated in getting fucked by the
It's
community,
true.
by like the companies that make these games.
Because
And
they're
like,
going to turn around and they're going to throw it in our face and say, guys, the real problems that you're pointing out now, you did this too. And we have to
mhm.
be able to look them dead in the eye and say, you're right, we did. But it
Yeah,
doesn't
I've
make it
I've
right.
taken
It has
some.
to stop.
I mean, I've taken some hard lines recently that like maybe other people can't do or wouldn't do, but like I gave up all Blizzard games, all Blizzard Activision games after the accusations and all the nonsense that happened at Blizzard. Like I don't want to have anything to do with a company that produces that. They were already fucking around as far as, and this is the fucked up thing. Like everyone's like, "Well, I can't give this stuff up." And then years later, I look back at my decision. I look at Overwatch 2. I look at all the things that we were promised, and I see that they got
It,
nothing that they were promised,
you made the
and that the
right
game
call.
is still horseshit, and they're still getting fucked over. So every time people are so reluctant to stand on their fucking virtues, but if you do it, you'll find it's right. They're throwing it all in the fucking trash. Don't give them any more of your fucking money.
Yep.
Like it's the same way with Wizards of the Coast. After what Hasbro did to like I dropped all D&D. I won't be I know D&D. I've been playing it for years. I won't be playing it anymore. If I want to play a D&D style game, I'll go play Pathfinder. If I want to play a role-playing game, there are a lot of other settings and games to play that are way better than D&D. I've always thought that in the first place. D&D is just universally accessible. And you know what? It needs to not be anymore. They need to be dethroned from that position because they are clearly not responsible enough to hold it because they kill golden geese. They murder them. They fucking kill them by the dozen. And I don't want to have anything to do with that anymore. So I
Amen.
quit Magic the Gathering, which was my job and was going to be my future career. I quit the game
Yes.
over this. Like and they're I'm not going to get any more Baldur's Gate 3. Another criticism of Baldur's Gate 3 for people who want it. It's obviously not done. For all that it's
Oh
full
shit.
and for all as intensely incredibly fucking like complete as it is, there is still so much left wanting at the end because it is
Hey.
so obvious that there is going to be more. The problem is that the more that we're going to get is not going to be worth playing. And so I'm quite bitter about that as well.
So even as a masterpiece, a kind of a truncated masterpiece.
It's bittersweet ending the
Dang.
game because you know that we won't get any more, and it's so obvious that we were meant to.
Oh man. Oh,
Yeah, it's a bummer.
that's the fucking shits right there.
Yeah, it's a real bummer that things
Damn,
went the way that
that
they
is a
did.
that's a hell of a pill.
Hmm. Yep. So that's another criticism of Baldur's Gate 3. Like there are real criticisms of Baldur's Gate 3. And if you don't like, here's the thing, if you don't like having sex with a bear, you're given multiple opportunities to say no. So just say no.
This,
And also, it doesn't show sex with a bear. It shows a cheeky little squirrel that runs in front of it, and it's adorable. It's a squirrel. They're my
the
favorite.
squirrel literally drops its acorn. They know. They know this is. They
They
know.
know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah. Um.
It's a D&D game, guys. Like D&D games are full of silly shit like this.
And again, that's the only thing. Again, that just goes to show. By the way, that critique being the only critique, and it's what I clap back at these people. You haven't played it, and I can tell you haven't played it because it's the only critique you have. Like,
It's because someone else told them that because
yeah, because
what they're
they
doing is not
haven't
playing
played
the
it. Yeah,
game. They're not playing the game. They are instead
talking about the game.
participating
Yep.
participating in the online conversation and having fun. And I mean, look at them. They're obviously having fun. This is a great time for them. They're bonding. They're creating social connections. They are building an identity. They are creating a movement. Like they're hanging out. They're creating spaces and conversations. They are
Yeah.
exchanging ideas. Like there's an incredible social movement going on, and all of it is based on cowardly horseshit, and it's really pathetic, and it upsets me that we can't do better
Yeah.
than this.
Because we are better than this. Damn it, we are.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
just a matter of having a little bit of cognition about ourselves. And I need to strive to do better too. For you guys, I need to strive to do better. How much effort have I spent on this bullshit, right?
yeah.
It is bullshit. Like She's not wrong. It's bullshit.
We're here for games, guys. We're here to play the games
Yes.
and talk about the games that we like.
And by the way, this is part of why I love having V on, because V will come on and she will set my ass straight sometimes when it needs it. And I have been kind of on my own like personal mission to like debunk this shit. Why? I haven't moved a single one of these fucking people over. They're crystallized. I haven't moved a
They
single
don't
one of them.
want to. It's fun.
It's fun,
Switching,
exactly.
and even if you switch their sides, they would just free participate. They'd go back in and they'd continue.
Well, and again, it
And
goes
then
back.
that new person stumbling in would just see a person arguing, no, no, it's okay. Her face, it's fine. It's like that. And it was like, why are we talking about her face?
Well, and again, even though I am cognizant of Hobbes and Locke and where that leads, I just want to point out that, I, like everybody else in the society, I do have that classical liberal tendency to overemphasize and have overabundance of confidence in debate. I think that's
Mhm.
kind of built into the sauce, right? Where
Mhm.
you think that if you have a good argument or if you have the facts, that you're going to change somebody's mind, and you won't. That's the thing.
There's an exchange, like there's clearly an interchange that, kind of ebbs and wanes in one direction or another. But the real flow to be understood is the flow of attention away from the actual games
Yeah.
themselves and towards these conversations.
Basically, yeah, they're obstructions, is what they are. At their
Yeah,
heart, they're
and these are from the
obstructions.
people that say keep your politics out of our games. I'm like, that is literally all you guys are doing. Like literally.
Also, what a dumb statement. I imagine Fallout New Vegas or Morrowind without the politics.
It's a meaningless
Huh?
statement. It really
What?
just is like
What?
it's a I don't like the way this was
Well,
and
I'll
wish
tell
it
you
were
what it
different.
is. I'll tell you what. It's not keep politics out of games. It's keep your politics out of games. I like my
That's because
politics. I
other
like my
yeah,
politics in
well,
games. I don't like
it's not even
your
necessarily that they
politics.
like it's not even necessarily they like their politics, it's that their politics are invisible. They don't see them. Because like water, like fish with water, they don't detect that they're surrounded by water because they're used to it. That's what they exist in. It's
Yeah.
when the fish runs into air that he suddenly starts to have problems.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, because they live it all day long, they don't recognize it when it is there, because it is there too.
Yeah.
Like your politics are there too,
Yeah.
guys. I promise.
Yeah,
Boy, I
but you'll
promise.
never point that out to them in a way that owns them and just causes them to change their mind. And
Okay.
even if you
Yeah.
do, by the way, they'll just be back to it next week after they talk to their buddies. Because again, it's about identity, it's about belonging, it's about connection.
About having
It's
fun.
about, it's about us versus them. It's about having fun. They are having fun.
Which I always
I
throw
think
that
that's a
because,
really
and
important
by the
part.
way, it's always the us and them thing. I found that to be that there's something I've learned from these little skirmishes. It's assumed. It is automatically
Oh yeah,
assumed that
absolutely.
if you
Yeah, yeah.
take, even if it's only on one issue, if you take any opposition to what they're saying, you are the them at that point.
Yep.
And so I've
Uh-huh.
had to
Yeah.
ask them. It's like, yeah, you guys. I said, who's you guys?
Because it's about identity. It's about identity.
Yeah,
Like your opinions like create a signifier that
like I
like
might agree with
comes
you.
with all these cultural
I
assumptions.
might
Yeah.
agree with you on 8 out of 10 things, but this
Hmm.
one little thing is enough for you to cast me into some other group, and
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
insanity. Like it's fucking nuts,
Yeah.
man.
No,
Like
I mean I had
you
a
know me.
person.
You
Yeah.
can tell, V. I am not a politically correct person. You know this.
Right.
Like I say all
I mean,
kinds of crazy shit as far as
as
just
as do I, friend.
yes. Um,
Or
I, I
like
I also think that woke scolds are fucking annoying. They're fucking. We get it. They're fucking irritating. We get it. But you're just as
I
irritating, if not more,
they
when you do
probably I say they
this.
probably bother me more than they bother the fascists. The fascists and conservatives love to sit around. They love it when a liberal says something stupid. I am always slapping my head and frustrated. These guys love it. So I actually think that liberals frustrate me more, to be honest with you. Um,
You're talking about like your
I,
like default. Just to define our terms a little bit for the chat. The default liberal frustrates you
I mean, well, I don't want
because
to get
that
onto
gets
it
oh,
exactly, but
because I
yeah.
promise you, especially in this fucking country, that gets lost.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know what you mean.
yeah. Liberal is the
Yeah,
default here. Like, yeah, and they're annoying and they're bad.
I guess I just mean the woke scold. I suppose is the
The
better
woke
way to put
skull,
it.
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
as much
those
as I
people
don't
are
like using that language, like there's a certain class of person that is basically the mirror alternative of this
exactly,
conversation. The people who
exactly.
you know make and like these are people that I think have like good intentions.
Sure,
They
but
don't
that's what I'm saying.
recognize
I'm like,
that
you're yelling,
they've been captured in this conversation in such a
right?
way that it can't actually be productive at all.
And what you're doing is you are literally, it's a good word, mirroring. Like, you are being that person you hate. You are that person, and
Yeah.
I promise you, you are just as stinky at the party as they are. I promise you. You're not doing yourselves any favors by being a reverse scold. You're not.
And like I'm not trying to like both sides of this stuff because like
No, no,
there is a
of course not. Yeah,
clearly bad faith side here, like
I
a
agree.
very clearly
No,
bad
I
faith
agree.
side here. But at the same time, like
No, you can be well-meaning and fucking annoying, and I do think that a lot of woke scolds are. I don't think the others are. But
yeah,
man, just again, like if and again, this is why it's best just to, like you said, play the games, because I think if you could see, and maybe you don't care, but I had one guy literally tell me, like, yeah, if video games could quote unquote go back to the way they used to be, you could call me a loser. I'm like, I don't think you understand how your average person views these type of things you're saying. I just don't think
I
you
would
understand.
absolutely refuse giving up the fountain of indie titles that we have at our fingertips nowadays
Oh, it is a
in
fountain of
exchange
youth too,
for
baby.
the snail's pace of mediocre fucking releases that we got from studios 20, 30 years ago. Like
Yeah.
no, this is just more of that imagined past that never existed. It's nonsense.
It's literally we are in a golden age if you look at indies. It's like we
Yeah,
talked
like
about. It's literally too good. It's too good
yeah.
for the people
I,
making indies.
yeah, all the people talking about how bad the gaming like environment is right now are simply just
No,
not considering the indie community at all.
no,
And that's and again, time the tyrant. You only have so much fucking time.
yeah.
Don't worry, you're going to be entertained for the rest of your days. If all the games stop coming out tomorrow, you'll be
That's
happy
a point.
forever, I
Yeah, that's
promise.
a point I make all the time. Is there's enough games right now, quality titles, to last you the rest of your fucking life if you did nothing else
Yeah.
but play games. It would last you
Yeah,
the
like
rest of your life.
I'm gonna shout out another game here,
Sure,
which like
let's do
just
it.
honestly, the game needs dedicated time. I need to sit and fucking dedicate myself to this game, and I don't know if I have the time for it. It's Rain World. Rain World is so cool.
My
Like
cousin
it's like
screams about Rain World as well. Yeah,
it just like it has such a atmosphere and a vibe to it, and it has like a environmental and sort of like uh interpretive storytelling to it that is really expressive and fun to engage with. Um, I know that there's so much there to explore, and also the like any kind of like pixel jumping like precision freaks who love that kind of
that's
thing.
me.
I promise you, it's in Rain World. Um, there are multiple difficulty levels. There is a lot of like just so like stick controls and jumping and like maneuvering your body and exchanging hands and weapons and doing combos, knocking out enemies, positionals. Like it's all very complex and begs to be studied and to be have time dedicated to it. Basically, that time that I just haven't had to put aside. But yeah, it
Too much
drips
Vampire
drips with
Survivors.
atmosphere. Yeah, because of fucking Vampire Survivors. But yeah, well, to be fair, Vampire Survivors is just easier. It's just a fucking easier game. Like I don't have to directly turn my brain on and work at it.
Yeah, Rain
Like
World seems like it's easy to learn, difficult to master, like an Othello type game.
it's reminiscent of Dark Souls. If I had to compare it to
Damn.
anything, I would
Okay.
compare it to as strange as it might seem to compare a little game about being
Well, you can do it.
uh,
Everybody else
a
fucking
slug
does.
cat. I really do think it's like Dark Souls, and that's because it's a clearly post-apocalyptic world that you're introduced to wordlessly.
hmm
Everything you understand about it comes from the environment through interpreting what you experience and what you encounter. There are all sorts of strange figures that you'll meet that you have to manage exchanging and communicating with. You have a sort of life and death loop and exploration, unlocking resting places. Like it is very similar. It's on a cycle. Like
No, yeah. So
yeah, it
speaking of
is
cycles,
extremely similar.
there's another game you were shouting out that I think I'm going to move up now that this conversation has inspired me. So, because I think I want to review that next, Loop Hero. So I want to shout
Oh
Loop Hero out
yeah,
too, that you said is fabulous.
yeah. Honestly, like it's to be frank, like Vampire Survivors has replaced Loop Hero because I have played quite a bit of Loop Hero.
Right.
But they are similar games in a way. In that they are kind of roguelike, they are kind of like building up a character, sort of RPG style. They are like traveling around different arenas and zones basically and increasing the power of your character through expanding abilities. um they are both kind of like about timing and cycles. Yeah, they're similar. But Loop Hero is obviously done in a very distinctly different way. It's nothing like a bullet hell.
So I mentioned Disco Elysium is one you need to play. I'm going to give you another one you need to play. In fact, I think you might have my copy of it right now, so you really need to play.
What's that?
And on the Switch, that's Celeste.
Yes, that's another one that like will beg for the mastery that I'm not sure I can provide.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's one of those but you mentioned pixel mastery games. I got to talk about Celeste because
Yeah.
Celeste is satisfying on a fulfillment and achievement level. It's satisfying on a storytelling level, and it's satisfying on a psychological level.
Nice.
I have never seen so many metaphors for so many things that work without any spoilers.
Hmm.
Like it's a storytelling masterclass as well as a platforming masterclass. It's the game I played that game and I said that yeah, this is just like Hollow Knight, which is another game, but again, these are very well known titles. Splasher, I'll give you one that's not well known. Splasher is a precision platformer that everybody should look up and play.
Hmm.
Splasher's fucking
Okay.
excellent. But
Splasher.
Splasher,
Gotcha.
it's called. Yeah, and I've got it physically. So yeah, if you ever get a chance to borrow it, it's a real quick game. It's pretty quick and done. But yeah, there's just God, there's so many indies. There's so many good indies.
Hmm. Hmm.
There's just so many. But oh, Kentucky Route Zero.
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot of great things about that game too.
Kentucky
Now,
Route Zero is a great American novel. It's the great American video game.
so there is a there's a YouTuber I liked back when I played Magic,
Hmm.
called Better Commander, and I'm going to sort of semi-lift one of his ideas.
Okay.
So he calls himself a hyena, because what he does is he waits for a reprint of a Magic card to happen, so he can scoop up a copy of the card at a low cost right when
Okay.
it gets reprinted. Right, like
Yeah.
a hyena, he
Hmm.
waits for the opportunity to get it.
Opportunistic. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel about games. Because of Steam and the Epic Game Store, I spent a great deal of my time playing games I wasn't necessarily planning on like going out and buying right now. Like I'm a games fan, right? I'm a person that likes video
Uh
games.
huh.
I don't have particular like there are some franchises that I have an attachment to, but that loyalty is incredibly shallow, if I'm being honest. I like video games, and it doesn't really matter much about them other than that they're fun. The types of games that I like don't really have a commonality.
Same here.
And
Same here.
so that suits me really well, actually. The fact that I just am provided these games at a cheap price, these just opportunity that to just snipe these moments like that, like I think that that is an excellent thing. I think that's one of the best like parts of the trade-off, so to speak, that I've made with Steam and with this Epic Game Store and these other sorts of digital marketplaces where you are able to get these discounted prices for these games at the cost of their physical presence. And I think that, like, maybe an interesting thing for the journalism to go on would be to talk about, what games are on sale at, in a given week. And I'm sure there are people that are covering that kind of thing, but that's how I experience games. Like, there are some games I'll go out and buy because I really want to have them. But a lot of games I pick up just because I happened to manage to get them. Like Nuclear Throne, for instance, is a fantastic game, fantastic indie game that I maybe would have otherwise not gotten, but I
Right.
managed to pick it up on the cheap, and it's incredible. Like, it's a real blast. Roguelike shooter, kind of a little bit more active than Vampire Survivors, a little harder, I would say. But yeah, it's like a lot of it, like crazy weapons and different character abilities. Really, really, really cool game.
Okay.
Great game.
Yeah, I know you've talked a lot about Nuclear Throne, and then Dwarf Fortress is the other one you talk about. That one's never coming to Switch, but there are
Oh
reasons for
man,
that. That's
Dwarf. I
that's
mean, you never know. You never know. Honestly, I wouldn't put it past them. I really wouldn't.
there's a
Like,
lot of
they
complexity
they've
with
been
that one.
they've been going so hard on that game.
Deceptively complex though.
Oh, it's.
Might be one of I read somewhere it might actually be one of the most complex calculation machines ever built. Actually,
I was just about to say, like, to be frank with you, like, Dwarf Fortress in some ways is on the forefront of simulation. And that is controversial, I imagine, but it is nonetheless, like, my belief, that in some ways it does simulation of certain things better than others, um, than any competitor. Um, and some people would call that kind of thing unnecessary, and it often is unnecessary. But that kind of unnecessary detail can sometimes inadvertently prove to be quite interesting. And I think Baldur's Gate has some of that complexity, right? That, like, emergent complexity that, like,
yes,
seemingly
it's
innocuous things that might never
it's
see the light of day actually do matter in certain
yeah,
circumstances. Yeah.
it's literally the ultimate trajectory just taken to further conclusion. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
there is there's a video on Dwarf Fortress. If y'all want to watch a video that'll blow your fucking mind, watch the Noble in the Tomb, I think is the name of the YouTube video. And all it's doing is describing an externality that can occur in any given game. One externality that can occur in Dwarf Fortress that is like a black swan event, but it just describes what the complexity of what it takes in order for it to happen and what to do about it if it happens.
Hmm.
Because eventually your society will develop nobles. And players have come up with some extraordinarily novel contingencies for when things like nobles develop. And the video just knocked my socks. I'm like, oh my God, you are describing something that is literally on a simulation level I've never even
Hmm.
imagined.
That is what, and things like that are what initially drew me to the game when I heard about the sort of emergent stories that came out of this, like, almost like, what's the word to describe this? Like, not meticulous, but, like, just, like, frustratingly precise game. Like, why are you so needlessly insisting on calculating every little part of this? And then as it plays out, you begin to understand why.
Yeah.
As all these little things play their part and change the course of everything.
Because
Mhm.
again, all you're doing is you're not in the actual like mundanity in and of itself. You're just guiding what happens. You're the guiding
Yeah,
force.
that's actually, yeah, that's the secondary part about it that's very intriguing, is that, like, and there are some other games that have gone down this path as well, actually,
SimCity, yeah, SimCity
that
2000
I
one.
want to. Well, I mean, in particular, like, direct descendants of Dwarf Fortress. So,
Oh,
games like RimWorld. RimWorld is a direct descendant of Dwarf Fortress. It's a reduction in complexity, I would say, but it's more accessible, and it has a lot of different aesthetics that can be
okay,
slapped onto it and make it kind of seem and look and feel different. It has a lot of different possibilities, so it's pretty cool in that regard.
awesome.
And then there's the Caves of Cud, which is much more true to Dwarf Fortress form, and it kind of is a little more like Dwarf Fortress story mode. if you're familiar with the distinction between story and fortress mode in Dwarf Fortress.
Not entirely, but it's certainly something I've been slowly but surely watching Dwarf Fortress content because I'm just fascinated by the game at
Gotcha.
this point.
Well, essentially, like Dwarf Fortress is actually multiple games. It's two games, and these games interlink. So there's Dwarf Fortress mode, where you, which is the mode you're probably familiar with,
Hmm.
where you have indirect control over a fortress of dwarves who, you can build and have mishaps and stories and
Uh-huh.
create and die and all the things that you'd imagine, right? But then there's also an adventure mode, and actually the adventure mode was built, that was the intention, to build the adventure mode first.
Huh.
And the gist of it is that like you basically play an adventurer who exists in the same generated world as the world that the fortress is played in. And in fact, you can pause your
Wow.
fortress, switch to survivor, or switch to adventure mode and visit your fortress. So you could, for instance, forge your adventurer a bunch of new equipment with your amazing, dwarf smith that you built over 100 years. Make an adventurer, show up and get that equipment. Like you can do that. That's the
That's
kind of game.
incredible.
Yeah, that's Dwarf Fortress. Yeah. So
Because,
Caves of
by the
Cut is
way,
like,
that is so interesting. Because, and I'll tell you why. When I think of a game like that, like you're literally talking about a game that simulates every single individual. And when I say simulates every single individual in the society, down to their
uh
likes, their dislikes, their hobbies, their
yes,
foibles, their job,
yes,
their
uh
concerns,
hmm
their these are fully simulated
yes. Fully
individuals, guys.
realized people. Yeah, fully realized people with like, by the way, like what you would call a woke array of possibilities. Like they really
Uh-oh.
do truly represent the diversity of humans, like in all forms. Yep. They also like, interestingly enough, a lot of fortresses will kind of have themes, So
Right.
like a lot of dwarves in a certain fortress will have a lot of physical characteristics that'll be similar. Like they'll all be bald, for instance, or
Okay.
they'll all like have like a certain color of hair or eyes
Gotcha.
or things
Yeah.
like that, basically. Like there are some fortresses that are kind of like that. It just kind of depends.
That's cool. That's so fucking cool. Um, Mike,
So yeah, Caves of Cud is inspired by that, and it's a little more like the adventure mode, and it's a little more text based. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
but it's still great. But I'm glad you brought that up because yeah, Caves of Cud. Now you said it's more of an adventure mode, but still another one of those descendants from the Dwarf Fortress trajectory. Because I talk a lot about
Yeah.
trajectories on this show, and sounds like that Dwarf Fortress did produce a trajectory all its own, which is cool as hell. That ought to show you how influential this game has been.
hmm
Yeah, influential games oftentimes present trajectories. Now, sometimes those trajectories get abandoned, like Ultima did. But the fact that it has a trajectory that it has created, like Minecraft did that, and Dwarf Fortress is another one of those games that did that. Yeah, Dwarf Fortress is
Yeah.
a much bigger deal than a lot of people realize. I feel
hmm
like I feel like a lot of gamers aren't cognizant of this how big a deal it is.
It is, I think, kind of slept on just because like it has like a kind of
Yeah,
like quaint reputation in a
hmm
way. Like there's a lot of like goofy stories about like dwarves carving cheese and stuff like that
they do.
that
Yeah.
kind of make the game seem silly, and it is silly. That's part of the fun of the game. But it's a very it's also like a very serious like cybernetic experiment that was done by a very dedicated, like very few. So it's pretty cool.
Now, Mike Clark says, I'm not even a Final Fantasy guy, lol. Chrono Trigger, Fantasy Star 2 and 4. We have good taste, irregardless. Fantasy Star 4, I would argue, is. I would argue Fantasy Star 4 on the Genesis rivals some of the greatest Final Fantasy games for sure. And so does Chrono Trigger. So, yeah, excellent taste. Now, Fantasy Star 2, I enjoyed Fantasy Star 2. I'd have to go back and play it again today. I feel like it wouldn't hold up as good today, but maybe correct me if I'm wrong, Mike. I know 4 holds up because I just went through 4 a couple years back. And, oh my God, that's a good game. Like that holds up with the best of the Final Fantasy series. Like I wouldn't call it 6 good, but it's right there. It's right below. It has to be done just. Oh, talking about Baldur's Gate 3, it has to be done just one game of the year. Not necessarily. Game can win game of the year and still produce content. Fuck, Morrowind did it, and it produced two dog shit fucking expansions that Tamriel Rebuilt is literally gonna just like yeet and do their own thing on. And it won Game of the Year. So I mean, you can win Game of the Year awards and still have content if that's what you mean. If not, you can always clarify. I'd be happy to look at your clarification. And then Mike Clark says Disco is a very good time. The game with Rutger Hauer is very good. I think. Whoa, wait, okay, slow your roll here. There's a game with fucking Rutger Hauer. I think it was called Observer, but I'm gonna have to let's see Rutger Hauer game. You got my attention. I love Rutger Hauer. Video game. It is Observer. And how ironic, that's Bluebird Team.
Oh, that's interesting.
How ironic. But yeah, Rutger Hauer was in a game. That's absolutely Rutger Hauer.
It's got good reviews.
God damn. Oh yeah, Observer. I remember Observer. I remember some of the buzz about Observer. So yeah, 100%. I'll have to check that out.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah,
yes.
Thanks. Didn't hear about
Well,
that.
definitely,
See, this is what I'm talking about.
Yes, talking about video games. Yes. 100%. So I think that's pretty much everything I have. Is there anything you wanted to ask me?
No, I think, yeah, I appreciate you having me on.
Anytime.
Having such a wide spanning conversation. I'm not even sure what exactly it is we talked about, but it's video games for sure. So that's the most important part.
We met our goal. Yeah, there. And fuck, we even got to throw some shade, but most of it was about video games. And again, that's what we need to get back to. I'm not saying we can't sometimes take the eye off the ball, but at the end of the day, this is about playing games and loving games and sharing our love of video games. And I think that I get away from that sometimes, and I certainly think that we all do. So it's something we need to be cognizant of, and don't let these little petty outrages spoil that for you guys, is what I would say. I'm certainly going to try and let it spoil things less for me. Because sometimes I get it. Like, people want to react to dumb shit. Like, sometimes you see something that's just so fucking stupid, and you want to react to it. But that's why they say the dumb shit. At the end of the day, that's why they say it.
Or that's why they do it. Like,
yeah,
to answer the people who on the other side who are like, oh, well, they're doing all this stuff just to make us mad. Well, stop letting it work on you.
Yes.
If it's so easy to just drag you around by your nose like that, they literally are doing it on purpose. If they are doing that, then they're not, obviously, your efforts to attack them are not working.
Yeah, no, here's the thing. If you genuinely don't like a video game, if you genuinely hate it and hate what it stands for and hate what it's doing, I have a saying in my business environment that no love, no hate, no hate, no love. The true enemy of any product is indifference. Okay? And
yeah.
What I mean by that is the best thing you can do if you hate a game and what it stands for is not buy it, not talk about it, not give it any time of day at all. Make it, as Orwellian as this sounds, make it an unproduct. Make the people you don't like an unperson. They're not there anymore. Indifference is the true killer. People can survive hate because if somebody hates you, that means other people love you. Because everything by its very nature is bifurcated and can be divided. It's how we humans.
Well, not only that, but like, people who have well-meaning like intentions can be swept up in these sorts of things, and then all of a sudden your voice is just adding to a larger voice that's calling for things that you don't agree with. And you might be thinking like, oh, well, there are other people that think like me that are also in this, but no one is hearing you. I'm telling you, they're not hearing you.
The blob doesn't
they're
care.
Hearing the guy. Yeah.
The blob
they're hearing all those other guys. Yep.
The blob doesn't care about your opinion. The blob cares that you're there.
That nuance is totally lost outside of the fact that you're standing on that side.
Yep. Then does everybody remember how they beat the blob? Great movie. They beat it by throwing ice on it. Blob does not care. Does not care. Um, anytime retired and spend too much time playing games, LOL. That's how you fucking retire, Mike Clark. I I hope if I retire, I hope I can play lots of games. That's one of my hopes. Um,
Oh,
was the last? Oh my god, yeah, that's true. Was his last work? Now I'm really gonna have to play that.
oh yeah. Now we
And
gotta
then
play that.
and then
Wow.
Mike Clark says, "Guys, play Princess Peach. It is such a fun time." Yeah, it looks fun. I'm
Oh man.
very happy with
Yeah.
Super Princess Peach. I'm very
I
happy
really
with
want to play that. That looks
or
so
not
cool.
Super. No, sorry, Super Princess Peach was the other game. This is Princess Peach Showtime. Very happy
Hmm.
with it. I'm just glad to see. By the way, I'm glad to see Peach finally get a real gameplay identity. Even fucking Toad had one before her. Toad
Hmm.
got
Hmm.
Captain Toad Treasure Tracker. So if this takes off, I look forward to more Peach variety, um, like actiony games. I look forward to it. I think it's a really
Well,
cool concept.
it also reminds me of like the last time when she was truly a playable character in Mario 2, where it was all like a stage play, you know? It
Yes,
has that similar feel. Like it feels like
that
an
is an
intentional callback. Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it absolutely. That's absolutely intentional. Well, I said the
Hmm.
same thing
Hmm.
with Toad. If you look at Toad, I swear to God, they built that character in Captain Toad Treasure Tracker around Toad's
Hmm.
foibles. If you look at
Hmm.
Captain Toad can't really jump that high. Okay, he's the
Hmm.
strongest, but he can't jump high. Captain Toad has a backpack that he carries shit around in. Captain Toad cannot jump in that game. Captain Toad picks up, plucks, and throws turnips at the enemies in that game. Enemies are callback enemies like Shy Guys, Fry Guys, Sniffits.
Hmm.
From
Hmm.
it's absolute the overall aesthetic is Arabian in nature,
Hmm.
like from
Yeah.
the Arabian Nights books.
Yeah.
It's absolutely a callback to Mario Brothers 2. And what a fucking brilliant observation. Yeah, the stage play design, that is absolute. Nintendo does nothing like that on accident.
Yeah.
That's
Uh-huh.
absolutely a Super Mario Brothers 2 callback to that being Peach's first real playable experience.
That was part of
Wow.
why I got so excited about it. I was like, look at that. They went right back to her initial roots when she was a playable character and one of the better playable characters, I might add.
Everybody pick Peach.
Of
She can
course.
float.
She can float.
Yep. All righty. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up, guys. Thanks so much for coming out. I appreciate everybody who came out on a Saturday. I know Saturday for most people they got shit going on Saturday, so I appreciate you guys for coming out. I do see that one. Don't think I don't see it, Brooke. I think that's you, and if not, we'll find out. But I really think that's you. But we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. I'm gonna go ahead and hopefully accept Brooke's friend request, and then Brooke, we will get a schedule a time to get you on. I'm excited to talk to you too. Love y'all. Have a great rest of your weekend, guys. I'm gonna end the chat now. Get the fuck out of here and enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care now.